everybody, and welcome back. Welcome to the second day of our retreat. What a time we had yesterday. It was beautiful. I loved it. Now, today, what we have two presentations for you and also the panel discussion. Before we get into the program, there's a couple of things that we need to do. We need to, first of all, relax and ground ourselves so that we can be prepared to actually receive the information and the blessings from today. To ground ourselves, let's go ahead and take a deep breath in and hold it for just the count of three. So deep breath in. 1, 2, 3. Let it out slowly. Now we'll take a second deep breath in and just let it out. One more time. Deep breath in and let it out. Wonderful. The next thing that we will do is go ahead and light your candle if you have it there. I'm not going to have you sage yourself again or because you did that yesterday. We will do a light ceremony though. So go ahead and if you can, light your candle. This is to help bring the light into the session. Mine is lit. I don't know if you can see that. Now, we're going to do a bit of a grounding exercise and also bring in some light, okay? Close your eyes and feel yourself relaxing. We're going to start with our feet. Feel your feet on the ground and feel the energy from the earth coming up through the earth into your feet. And feel that energy going up your thighs, up your legs, through to your thighs, up through your body, and out through your crown chakra. Good. Now you want to feel the energy of who you are turning into a ball of white light that is surrounding you, surrounding every part of you. Feel that light flowing out from you, all around you, at the top of your head, the bottom of your feet, and feel yourself soaking in the energy of your own essence. Good. I'm going to set my intention for our time together today. And afterwards, I'd like you, as your eyes are closed, to set your intention for what you'd like to receive today. I'm going to do an opening invocation, which is a Buddhist invocation. Through the power and truth of this practice, of this retreat, may all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may they dwell in the great equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Now, do your own prayer, say your own prayer to yourself, to your higher mind, to whomever you pray to, asking for guidance for you today and asking to receive whatever it is you need to receive, and also asking for protection. I'll give you a minute. All right, good. We have set the intention for today, and we are ready to go. Tiffany Harlick is our first presenter today. Hello, Tiffany.
Hello, Marie.
Perfect. I am so thrilled to introduce the incredible, gifted Tiffany Harlick. Tiffany, it holds a master's in health psychology, and she's certified as a master teacher under Lisa Williams, who is and she's also a professional evolutionary astrologer and spiritual development teacher based in Texas. She's the founder and publisher of Spellbound and has authored and produced several best-selling books on fascinating topics ranging from cooking to astrology, yoga, and even beekeeping. Yes, she is a beekeeper too. She truly embodies a connection to wisdom in many forms. You can connect with her amazing work through her Wise Skies digital astrology calendar, her 40-day Days of Spirit email product. You can connect with her on YouTube. So let's get ready for a deep dive into the mechanics of your intuitive abilities, because today Tiffany is guiding us through the anatomy of intuition, how to make a connection with spirit. So Tiffany will explore how intuition flows through 5 main lenses, helping us recognize the physical sensations, emotions, and subconscious messages that make up our unique intuitive language. Take it away, Tiffany.
All right, Marie, thanks. And hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. This is one of my favorite topics to teach on. So enjoy whatever you're doing behind your screens. You don't have to be your face on to participate or enjoy. However, it will help me fine tune the talk a little bit if you can tell me kind of where you are on your intuition scale. So if 10 was like best psychic in the world, I know everything, and 0 was like, I don't even know how to connect to my intuition. If you could put yourself somewhere on the scale of that and just pop it in the chat for me, that would be awesome. So there's going to be a range of people here today that may already know some of this material. So I just invite you to listen with new ears, maybe hear something new, take away an exercise, for your community and your people as well. I love why I'm passionate about intuition is kind of unpopular among my colleagues. I say don't hire an astrologer, become one. Don't hire a psychic, become one. The language of spirit is available to everybody all the time, and it's pretty simple. However, a lot of times we don't use our senses as a language, and so this talk should help you understand the anatomy of intuition, how it works, and that way you can start to see yourself and how your skills and talents might be coming through. The lenses that we look through are body, mind, soul, aura, and chakras. So those are the 5 lenses. And at the end, we're going to talk about different styles of intuitive connection. So why learn about intuition? You never know what you're training for. You never know that moment that you're going to need to access your intuition and trust it. And so it's just like a meditation practice. Anything you would do for your health or your physical hygiene, you would also do for your spiritual hygiene. And let's see why we don't trust our intuition are many, many things. If I have missed something on the list, let me know. I like to kind of add and tweak and play as I go through these classes. But why don't we trust our intuition? Sometimes religion, sometimes cultural or social programming, sometimes homogenization, sometimes there's an emphasis in the way that our school systems, our businesses are, that we should be more left-brained. I am very left-brained, so I understand that. Sometimes we're scared. We've had bad experiences. Something has freaked us out. Sometimes we lost touch with it, or we just don't really know how it works. It could be that we're having a physical problem, that we're not biochemically regulated, and we might not just be trusting. Yeah, the Thea is a 9 or 10. Oh no, Nathan's telling Thea. I was like, dang, girl, that is an amazing level of confidence. Perfect. Okay, where are you naturally intuitive? We have senses. We have physical senses, smelling, hearing, tasting, seeing, touching, that extend out into the metaphysical world. So our physical senses extend out. It's beyond this physical plane and goes into the metaphysical plane. So if you have if you're really sensitive to sound, if you're really sensitive to light, if you're really sensitive to taste, you might also naturally be intuitive there. When we go into teaching psychic circles or psychic development, this is what we want to break it down into, right? You need to learn how to play every instrument in the band. You might be better at one, but if you strengthen all of your skills, right? If you learn guitar, if you learn harmony, if you learn bass, if you learn the keys, if you learn drums, you're going to be able to pick up anything and use any of the lenses at any time. So it's you need to know where you're naturally strong, and then you also need to want to develop the other areas too. But before we even look at the lens, intention is the most important thing. The intention that you set to be intuitive is the most important thing. Even Russell Targ, right, who was the psychic spy for the CIA, even he says, right, that you need to write your intention before you start remote viewing. And the intention could just be, I am intuitive. Intentions in the brain. So the prefrontal cortex lights up. This area is good for our goals. It's good for our decisions. When we make an intention, our prefrontal cortex activates, and then it helps us maintain those goals. And so you want to light that section up. So if you're wanting to practice, you can write a little intention about intuition. The anterior cingulate cortex also lights up. And this is where we have cognitive dissonance, where our brain says, nope, you said you said you were going to do this. So we're going to hold you accountable to it. So the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex lights up. And then you get a dopamine hit, right? So you get a dopamine hit when you're writing an intention. And this is good. This is the cheerleader. This is the feel good hormone. This is the thing that's like, yeah, you can do this. This is going to boost your confidence. So if anybody watching now or later has confidence as their issue, right? An intention is something that right out the gate is going to help with your feel good motivation and your motivators. It also helps with serotonin. So intentions positively impact our serotonin, which is another feel good, well-being and confidence, right, promoter, neurochemical. So intentions, neuroplasticity, and habits. We want to do this over and over again so that we build the muscle of intuition. So every time you're practicing your intuition, you write the intention down. That is what is going to strengthen the neural pathways and help support your psychic development. Just like when you're meditating, right? If you sit down at the same time every day, your body is going to say, oh, I know what she's doing, right? If you've ever written a book, right? And the advice, just sit down, write anyway, write even if you have nothing to say, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. or whatever your time is, right? If you sit down and do the practice at the same time, the body starts to pre-recognize that what you're doing. So you'll be more successful if you sit down at the same time with a similar space and then write your intention. Okay, so these are the 5 lenses we were talking about. You could look at this through an astrological lens as well, but we're not going to add that layer today. We're just going to go through body, mind, soul, aura, and chakras. So what does intuition feel like in the body, right? It's stomach butterflies, queasiness. It's when we get, when we can shut our heart off, when we don't want to feel things, when we're scared of something. How many of you get goosebumps? How many of you feel it through chills or heat or tingles? Sometimes people will say the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Some people use muscle testing or applied kinesiology in their practices, right? And this is a form of intuition in the body. The body pendulum, if anybody's curious about that, I'd be happy to go into it. All right. No questions so far. Within the body, we're talking about the physical body. We have gut, brain, heart axis, right? I always say that word funny. It's axis, not access. But your body is a barometer of information, and so you can just start to pay attention to it. If you are going into an intuitive state, or you're trying to get to connect to spirit, right, to connect to our creator, to get some information, to answer a question, and you find you're naturally tense, or you find you're naturally leaning in a certain way, your body's already trying to tell you something. This gut, brain, heart axis is absolutely linked to our intuition. It's linked to the limbic system, which has to do with our emotions. It's linked to the prefrontal cortex and the creative right side of the brain. And it's a metaphysical superhighway of information, right? There's all kinds of bacteria in there telling us what to do, and working with our digestive enzymes and keeping that side of our bodies healthy is absolutely linked to our intuition. So quick question, are women more intuitive? Is that true? Is that false? What is that? Is that a thing? Their women's corpus callosum, which is that white stuff in the middle of the brain that connects the right and the left side, is thicker than men's. I guess, statistically speaking, so women's brains are more efficient or faster at getting to both sides of the hemisphere. And so they're traditionally, right, a woman's brain is going to integrate emotion and gut feeling with that logical side, right? So the woman's brain, how do you feel versus what do you think? And when you are thinking, right, you're not in your heart, you're not in your gut, you're not in your brain, you're not in your belly, you're up here. So when you're thinking about opposite and complementary medicine, if you're overthinking or making up a beautiful Hollywood story and you're up here, you're not down here. So you just, you can sink. And oppositely, if you're all in your feels and you're having emotions, right, you can snap out of that and use this super highway of metaphysical information up and down the body. You've heard people say, listen to your heart. Well, yeah, the heart-brain connection through the vagus nerve, that absolutely influences your intuition. I want to skip ahead here a little bit. What does the body need for high performance intuition? You guys know how to take care of your bodies. Feel free to take a screenshot there. I went and got a massage this morning. Yay, that keeps everything feeling good and in alignment too. So after the body, we want to shift to the mind. And what does intuition feel like in the mind? This is where we see things, where we smell, taste, hear things, where we kind of just know something. Seeing, for me, this when if you lose like the clairvoyance and the the clair stops your mind thinking from, it just blocks you from being able to understand what clair is it and what am I. It's just all of your senses. It's just your senses. So for me, clear seeing it feels like a memory. It feels like I'm remembering a movie that I saw, and it's just kind of vague, and then it comes into focus, and then I can see it, I can hear it, I can remember more about it, right? All of that seeing, feeling, knowing comes from the optic nerve, and you need light for that. So read with your eyes open, right? Smelling and tasting comes from a different place in our brain. It comes from the olfactory bulb, the orbitofrontal cortex, and the olfactory bulb is linked to memory, right? So if I was to walk around our virtual room and say, smell these beautiful coffee beans, right? I just adore this particular coffee. You would smell it. It would take you to a memory, and it would take you to a different memory than it would take me to. And that's okay, right? Because the person coming to sit with me is interested in my experience, strength, and hope. And the person coming to sit with you is interested in yours. So there's not like a right memory that we're supposed to access, right? It's your memory that you're supposed to access. And then hearing comes from the top of the head. So this is intuition that is mind or mental based. Why can your brain read that, right? Our brain's going to fill in parts for us. It's conditioned to fill in parts for us. It wants to tell a story, right, where there may not be one. When you're getting psychic hits and psychic information, often you just need the bullet points and the other party can fill it in. Okay, so there's a difference when we're trying to be intuitive for ourselves and versus intuitive for somebody else. We would never ethically check in on somebody else without their permission. Part of my professional background includes doing missing persons cases, which I was working with law enforcement on various different cases, and we did find live people. So this work you can use and actually, make a really big difference in the family's lives. But you can't fill in the data point, and you don't want to solve the crime. You don't want your ego to get in the way, because how did you know that it was on Highway 12 under the mailbox, right? Like now, it's not just that you're psychic, it's that you're implied. So you just want to give little hits, little pieces of data. You don't want to let your brain tell the beautiful Hollywood story. An example of this is there was one missing case, and they were asking me which direction to go. And I said, all right, we're on a highway. And what I saw was a 1 and a 2. And I said, we're on a highway where the 1 meets the 2. That's what I said. And they were like, yeah, there's a highway 12 out here. I'm like, great, perfect. Go with that. So the information, the data may come in a kind of a funny way to maintain your innocence in a way, right? Your mind is reading this automatically without even thinking about it. The brain is going to process information from different sources, so you might as well take it all in. There is a technique called forced connections. Are you guys familiar with this one? Not really. Okay. So this is the easiest one. This is your biggest takeaway from my little section anyway. Everything, right? Everything in your world, in your room right now where you're sitting is a piece of psychic information. If you set your intention, right? If you set your intention and you say, all right, my intention is that I'm going to give clear, concise, and accurate information in a way that everyone here can understand. Right. And my intention is to deliver a message of hope for the people that have questions coming to the top of mind. And then I'm going to look around my room. I've set my intention. I've expanded my aura out slightly. I've like poofed it out a little bit here. Woo. I'm connecting to you in the field of unconditional love and infinite wisdom where all things are possible. And then I hone in on something. Right. It's like a glove that fits. I know that's a bad joke. But it's like a feeling that's where your eyes are locked into. And when you go away from it, it doesn't feel right anymore. It's like a magnet that hooks in. So you've set your intention, you've asked a question, you've looked around, and now your eyes are like, no, it's right there. So I'm fixated on something, and then I'm going to go ahead and use it as a launch pad to deliver some ideas and information. I'm going to use that little piece as something to have a memory, have an emotion, have a tidbit, right? So what I'm locked in on is this little incense holder, and it's a cactus shape. Okay. And so I would then come up with something. So we didn't ask a question. This isn't a really proper dim. Marie, can I demonstrate on you? Do you have a little question that you could ask? Coming to top of heart, top of mind?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Sure. What is my summer going to be like?
Perfect. Okay. So I'm surrounded by beautiful things and colors and things that I could really lock into. Here's what I noticed. I'm going to say hot, dry, and I would be it's like I'm either feeling light sensitive for some reason, but I would dry, hot, and sweet. So those are the three things that I'm getting. Why hot? Because I'm really stuck on this red goblet over here. Why dry? Because I've got some wheat that's dry, like this dried herb. And then why sweet? As I have some honeycomb that's just really standing out in front of me. So she's asked a question that she can't validate, right? So you could say like, all right, Tiffany, yeah, that may or may not work. I'll do another demonstration a little bit later once we get through the rest of the slides, but that's how you do forced connections, right? Now, Marie is going to hang on to those words, and this summer she's going to look for hot, dry, and sweet. It could be in her vacation time. It could be in her meal planning, right? It could be, there's many ways that that could manifest, but that's just a quick demonstration. The world becomes a bit of your tarot card, right? The world becomes something to interpret. And you just do little bits of data, and the other person will usually be able to say, yes, that makes sense, and here's why. Okay, so what does the mind need for high performance intuition? Really meditation, really breath work, brain training, right? Focus. How can you focus your brain? You can just balance, right? The balancing, standing on one leg will help focus the brain. Okay, so if you're going about your day and you're in a room of a bunch of people, you can just start standing on one leg. When you're putting your pants on in the morning, when you're putting your shoes on, right, just stand on one leg. Don't sit down to put them on. Stand on one leg and really wrestle with it. And that is training your nervous system and training your mind to have high focus. Okay, the body-mind connection. This area I'm going to skip over because we talked about mind, heart, gut already. So when this microbiome is out of whack, you're not feeling intuitive. You have brain fog, right? And if you're having brain fog, you're not very clear usually. And this also regulates mood, weight, cortisol. If you've had a life where you've carried a lot of stress and you have cortisol flushing through your body all the time, we want to work on that physically, right? So that you can access those gut feelings. And this, I think, is often overlooked. So this is something that I think has been really important. It also helps regulate hormones and just the neurochemistry of things. Did you know that 90% of the cells in your body are not human? 23,000 of those cells are human genes, and more than 20 million are bacterial. So it's worth getting the right probiotic. It's worth getting the right hormone balancing thing for you. Yeah, so I'll leave that there. I'm going to skip through these a little bit here. So practicing with your mind. The mind, hearing a voice vibration. So do you guys want to practice? I want to be mindful of the time. Do you want to practice? If so, we'll do a little practice round together live. Yes, Thea. Yes, Tony. All right, you guys with your cameras on. So I want you to practice just using voice vibration. So just using voice vibration. Since Nathan is off camera for us on purpose, stay off camera, Nathan. Nobody has seen this person behind the veil. What I want Nathan, if you're willing to do, is in a moment, unmute yourself and say your name 3 times, if you're willing just to play the game. Is that agreeable?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is you're going to write your intention or kind of get it in your heart. I'm have a really strong intuition. I'm a 10 out of a 10. I'm going to offer clear, concise, and accurate information in a way that makes sense to Nathan. And all we're going to do, right, is listen, and extend our hearing into the metaphysical realm. Listen to the frequency of the way Nathan is being said. And we're going to come up with some bullet points about who he is. Not what he does necessarily, but what kind of person is he? So if you'll go ahead and unmute yourself, and we just want to hear you say your own name 3 times, please.
Nathan, Nathan, Nathan.
Amazing. All right. So for me, we can put these in the chat, or we can talk out loud if you guys prefer. I'm going to put them in the chat. I'm going to say, because the way he said it, I'm going to say this person is orderly. I'm going to say that he is strategic, precise, Tony says, he was willing to jump in, right? That's kind of cool, but that's not what we heard through the voice. So are there any other things? Leader, Thea says. Yeah, leadership voice, curious, helpful, amazing, right? Please don't put anything negative in about our boy. Not that you would. Friendly. All right. Amazing. Okay, so Nathan, do any of those stand out as like dead on accurate?
Yeah, I would say probably the one that is most accurate would be the precise.
Love it. Tony gets the gold star.
And
Amazing.
supportive too. That's a good runner-up as well.
Okay. Thank you for chiming in. I know that you're working magic back there, so thank you so much for that. But this in a large group of people is so fun, especially when you don't know them, right? Especially when you're not making assumptions, you're listening behind the voice. We could do photographs as well, like looking at a photograph. You want to have eyes open. You want to look at the left eye, the eye of the soul. You don't want to look at facial expressions because that's not really what's going on at the soul level. But then you're able to give some characteristics and traits of somebody, and it strengthens that little dopamine hit that gives you like, yes, I am psychic. So everybody here got something right there. There was just one or two that stood out above the others, and that's awesome. So this is why we like to practice together in small groups. So the third little anatomy piece of our intuition, we talked about body, we talked about mind, what's going on up here. We need to talk about soul too. From my belief and perspective, our soul has no age, it's timeless. I had a near-death experience when I was 14, and I saw the other side. Okay. So I saw what I believe are different orbs and souls and a God force creator, one God energy. And so with all those souls, my understanding on the other side is that our soul has no age, our soul has no gender, that life goes on. What is the soul? That's for everybody to decide on their own. But I have that line down there because when my Uncle Bill died, I was going to the funeral and I was not making my little tiny daughter go with me because it's kind of awkward, she's small and she didn't know him. And I said, now, okay, when the body dies, and she goes, the spirit lives on, as though I had said it like every day of her life or something. But the soul lives on, right? It's the essence that goes on. I don't know if you've ever been with somebody at the time of their passing or a pet with the time of their passing. You feel that, you feel that essence leaving, and the body comes back to earth and the soul lives on. Maybe some of you have had dreams or touched base, right, with those loved ones that have passed on. There's a knowingness, right, that there's a continuation of life in the afterlife, and that's the soul. That's what we're talking about. What does intuition feel like in the soul? It's kind of deja vu. It's kind of south node. It's kind of past life. It's kind of a deep knowing. It's more than like a hit or a butterfly in the stomach or a heat rush. It's a deep, like, I'm not confused about this. Like we've been here before. I know you. We've worked together before. That's that soul level feeling. What does the soul need for high performance? The same thing as everything else, a healthy vessel, connection, community, right? The opposite of addiction, right? Is that community, is that connection. The soul needs desire. It needs something to do. It needs to have a purpose. We all have a purpose. In astrology, you could look at your midheaven for how your purpose is unfolding. You were not born to be a certain thing. You were born to serve a greater purpose, right? And so that purpose unfolds through your midheaven. My midheaven is in Virgo. So I love data. I love health. I love healing. I have a master's in health psychology. I have a bullet point spreadsheets. I keep bees. Every part of the hive, bees are ruled by Mercury, which is ruled by Virgo. Bees, every part of the hive is medicinal. Every part is healing. The honey, the wax, the propolis, everything, that bee air even. So it doesn't matter what I do, as long as I do it in a Virgo way, I'm going to feel a sense of purpose, satisfaction, fulfillment, and completion in my life. So it's just a tone of how we do it, right? You could sign me up for an accounting job. I might not like it, but as long as I do it in a Virgo way, I'm going to feel some satisfaction with that. Um, and it kind of diminishes our ego and puts us in that heart of service to where our tiny lives don't matter that much, right? It's more about like how am I going to serve today, and what's the tone, what's the flavor of that. So another fun thing you could play with. What does intuition feel like in the aura? So aura, right? Aura is this area outside of our body, this energetic field, right? You could rub your hands together and you could feel this ball of energy here if you wanted to. Aura connection, this is when we're blending energies. This is when a lot of empaths that have to learn early on, oh, I need healthy boundaries, right? I need to set myself up because I'm just blending into everything and feeling everybody's emotions. And I'm grabbing ideas from the ethers, and I'm about to write my world famous book, but then somebody else comes out with it. That there can be an over expansion with that Piscean blending of energies feeling in the aura. There can be interdimensional connections. There can be mediumistic connections. Everybody has to come to their own terms, right, with what types of connections that you are willing and comfortable to make. I used to make connections that I no longer make now, that I have a different belief system now. So I just leave that up to you all to decide what type of connections that you want to make as you're blending out. But if you set your intention, right, that's your boundary and that's your safety zone. If you don't want to make connections when you're sleeping, if you don't want to make connections when you're in the plane, things like this, you can visualize a cube of ice around you. A very Scorpio thing to do, ice them out, right? You just get the cube of ice around you and just nothing is allowed in. And that's my energetic boundary. There are 7 layers of the aura. I don't have the colors right. I'm sorry. I can't find the right aura slide. I would love for somebody to have that perfect slide, or for me to create it like through art or something. But this is the correct order, excuse me. So the first of the 7 layers is the etheric layer. This is the one that's like flat against your outline of your body. Right. The next little layer, this is like etheric, flat around the outside of your body. The emotional layer is a little further out, then the mental layer, then the astral, then the etheric template. This one is an exact mirror of the etheric layer. So the etheric layer that's right by you and the etheric template that's out here, when people feel touched by spirit or scratched or hugged, or when it feels like something made an impression, but then there's nobody there, right? That their spirit is never actually on you. You're feeling it in the etheric template, right? It's out here and it's mirrored in the etheric aura. So really there's nothing to ever be scared of. And if that does happen to you, you have the tool of just setting your intention and saying, I need some personal space. I don't want to be contacted at night. I'm putting myself in a beautiful ice cube, and this is my aura and nobody's allowed in. And you have authority, you have spiritual authority to set your healthy boundaries, right? The next layers are celestial and etheric. Some readers will use this as a way to access different information points. Okay, so if I wanted to read you emotionally, I would access that layer of the aura. If I wanted to read further out, right, a bigger life purpose, soul purpose question, I would read further out. And so this is just something to be aware of as we're discussing anatomy of intuition. Auras are impacted by technology. So when Marie was having us do a sage cleanse, right, that's great, because auras, your aura does need maintenance work. It does need to be cleaned up. I love to do like just a simple rainbow chakra visualization. I pray, right? I have meditation. The elements, bringing the elements in, bringing sound in, bringing light patches in. I really like those things. The bringing like the sound of running water, like that can kind of keep things moving. I work with a woman that does energy cleanse, that does technology because we're constantly bombarded by technology. And she has taught me to really set the space to be pure for tech to not penetrate my aura all night, right? While I'm sleeping, we can turn our phones off, we can turn our TVs off, but we can't turn our neighbor's internet off. So, right, we have to be aware of being constantly bombarded. And then I mentioned chakras so that you guys don't need chakra 101. Everybody here is like high level intuitive. I get it. But it's worth mentioning because you can also access psychic information through the chakras. And of course, there's more than these basic 7 chakras. But if you wanted to do a visualization, you could go red all the way up the rainbows through purple at the top and just do a little cleanse and wash the energy out of your body, just like a paintbrush, just using the imagination and painting these beautiful colors to light up the centers. When you're doing your readings, you can use color, right? You can use color as a source of information. So if you're somebody who experiences color through imagination or any of the senses, right? Each of those frequencies is going to give you some data. And it can give you different data than what the data is supposed to be, right? Yellow, wisdom. Orange is the healer. It's the healer code. Blue has to do with the robes of Mary, and another highly spiritual mediumistic type color is blue. So once you are seeing colors, if you'll notice, if they're opaque and strong and full, juicy, vibrant color, that indicates health, wellness, illumination. If you notice it's kind of light and gray and dim and it's not its full color, right? That indicates illness, dis-ease, a lack of health in some area. A lot of people do Reiki healing. I was trained in that. It's not my forte. It's not what I'm teaching right now. But I am saying that you can use color to visualize good things for people, to pray for people, to send healing in a way. When I was a little girl, I used to pretend I was walking on the trail in Austin, and I would pretend that I would just paint them with pink and gold lights, and that was my prayer. Like, I love you. Send you some love. Just boom, send you some love. So color is a language of spirit, just like emotion is a language of spirit, just like the goosebumps is telling you yes, right? And so these are all different languages that we have to discern as info and data and not take personally as though I feel everything that is coming my way for me. I might be feeling some sadness because I'm needing to convey that in my next reading, right? I need to learn that discernment, and that's where the practice really helps. So chakras and colors are a great lens and a part of a healthy working intuition system. Okay, what do they need? I talked about the color meditation. Third eye clearing, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff you can find on YouTube to do that. This pineal gland calcifies, and so we want to spend some time sending it some love, light and healing, and of course, filtered water, brushing your teeth with filtered water, showering with filtered water, drinking it, right? This can all help with that third eye clearing. Sometimes there can be denialism or a band of protection over this third eye. And so sometimes people will just like visualize that third eye opening and so that you can see clearer. Those are health tips for your chakras. So the different styles we've talked about so far, right? They're all up here. Are there any that I missed? Yeah. So once you look at the anatomy of intuition and then you apply it through these different lenses, right? So some of us are going to be strong hearers. Some of us are going to be strong seers. Some of us are going to be strong tasters. And that can be really gross, and it can be really beautiful too. Do you ever wake up in the morning and the first thing is like you smell coffee and nobody's making it? Or do you smell floral roses and there's nobody there, but it's very perfume oriented? Do you have these experiences? Am I alone? Yeah, you have these experiences. Okay, good. Can you walk into a room and you just know the vibe? Like, people have been fighting in there, you know? Do you walk into a coffee shop and it's your favorite coffee shop and your brain turns on and you get to work and everything feels clear? Like, vibing is a way of accessing your intuition. It keeps us safe, right? And a lot of us are intuitive because we have strong eighth house placements. We have strong trauma. We have strong 12th house placements. We have secrets, we have strong fourth house placements. We have things that were hidden that we weren't supposed to talk about in our family lineage. So anyone with carrying some wounds or trauma, big T, little t, right? Either one, that is something to be really grateful for, because that's something that taught you how to be intuitive. You had to read the energy to keep yourself safe. And now as adults, we're not doing that out of a survival strategy. We're doing it out of a love for the divine, a love for a connection to a higher source, a higher power, right? A love for information. Now, I believe we weren't called to understand every single thing. So I don't think we're owed all of the answers all of the time. I do think that we're called to trust. And so if we're not trusting our intuition, who are we even talking to? How are we even working with this game of spirit connection, right? So my example of who are you talking to, I love for people to really ponder and contemplate that. And my answer has changed personally over the last 20 plus years, right? But I had this experience once. You guys are going to think I'm like a massage junkie. I was getting a massage and I have some physical problems, but I was face down. I was comfortable. I was in a safe space. And my massage therapist friend said, "You're not going to believe this. I lost my wedding ring today." And I was like, "Oh no, if you want me to try to find it, don't say anything else." And she was like, "Okay, yes, please," And so I did some remote viewing, and I saw a log like you would park at like a railroad tie, right? And like a gravel area and ivy that was on a wall. And I was like, "It's in the gravel though." And she said, "Well, that's weird because I did an outpatient massage today and I did park at a railroad tie and it was on gravel and there was ivy there." So she went and got her husband. They found the wedding ring. It was a $10,000 ring. It was a nice save, right? But in that moment, I was like, "Well, who knew?" Because not me. I didn't know. I didn't even know she'd lost the ring. I didn't know where she'd been that day. I didn't care, I didn't even care where she'd been that day. I was doing my own day. And she sure didn't know. Otherwise, she would have gone and found it, right? Well, what was I reading? Who was there? Who did know? Who's the knower? Who is the seer? Who cared enough about this woman to convey back to me, through me, right? I'm not special, just to convey through me that her ring was over here and they found it. And so that was a real turning point for me in this type of delving into the spiritual side, is who am I talking to? Because there was a long time that I was really angry at God, didn't trust God, didn't want to, blamed everything. And so this was disorienting for me, that there might be a loving creator, right? And that's who I believe was helping me at the time. I know people have different lineages and languages for guides and spirit connection. For me, it's just one, right? And that's who I saw in my near death. My experience may be similar to yours. It may be different, but you should still, I encourage you to still ask yourself and grapple with, who am I talking to when I'm sending out my energy into the ethers? Why am I doing that? What's the purpose? Am I trying to know that which should not be known? Am I trying to access information that it's not my time to access? Am I trying to am I trying to prove something? Or, right, is there some purity within my intention? Am I just like everybody else and I want to know, do I marry him? Do I move? Am I in the right job? Like the 5 questions that everybody asks, right? Well, to me, let's shift that and be able to understand our intuition and go straight to the main line and get info. And that way, when you're talking with your buddies, it's more of a validation than something that we're like making a person a god, right? And that's what I've seen in the industry since I've been studying, that makes me cringe, right? Like there's a lot of stuff out there that is fear-based, or that is takes people out of their place of power with their own senses. Let me see what other slides I have. You're here to serve spirit your way, right? So I do it this way, you do it that way. It's what makes us beautiful. Trust your nervous system. Your nervous system regulation, if you're noticing the Tao fluctuate and you have a freak out, right? Are you in fight, flight, fright? What's your reaction? Do you freeze? If your money's going, are you like, do you freeze? I spend every penny I have. Wow, like better. I gotta get it while I got some money because I'm about to not have some money. Other people are very conservative. I have a weird reaction, right? So I'm not saying that's the right. I'm just saying your nervous system has a response that is well ingrained based on your experience and your past, right? So you start to notice that. Am I having a nervous system reaction? Am I buying this thing on Amazon because I'm having a nervous system reaction? Am I answering this person in a way because I'm in a fight, flight, or fright thing? Well, if so, then my whole gut brain axis is off, my intuition is off, and I'm not being a service to anybody, really. If you are practicing doing sessions with other people, at the end, I encourage you to have your own time at the beginning and the end and to have reverence for that which you are connecting to. I always go back to spirit at the end and say, was that good for you? Was that good for you? Can I learn something? What could I have done better? And I'm on my knees and I'm praying. And I you know what I mean? Like I really have a desire to have a connection with my creator. And so I encourage you to have that level of love and trust with that which you are connecting to. Practicing isolating your senses, that's going to be the fastest way to on-ramp your intuition. Practice a little of the strategies for emotional connection, practice the strategies for hearing connection, practice each of the senses. You could do readings from your Spotify playlist. I teach a class on this where the whole exercise is we're just doing readings by looking at our playlist, right? So the sitter will ask a question. We'll be like, 1 moment, please. And we'll scroll through and I'll be like on my Motown playlist and I'll be like, oh, and I'll say whatever the song is, and it turns into a reading. It launches you in to say the thing that's wanting to happen through you. So practice switching your awareness centers, practice isolating your senses. Let's see. That doesn't relate to us. Keep your eyes open while you're reading because the optic nerve needs light to function. So you really need your eyes open for most of the senses, right? So you don't want to be like, oh, I'm getting this thing. Oh yeah, I see it's like a cloud. No, you keep your eyes open. Another thing, let's see, how am I doing on time? I'm okay. I'm going to shift to questions here in a second. To turn no's into wows, because inevitably we're practicing and somebody's like, no, that's not it, right? And then your heart drops, you disconnect from spirit, you tell yourself, I'm no good at this, I can't do it, what was I thinking? I wasn't even really connected anyway, and you shut down, and then you're not a service, because we shift into ego really quickly when we get the no's. And so I like to have people practice hearing no, feeling shut down, and then plugging back in, right, to spirit. So you're like, okay, thank you. That was a no. So now what was the last time you got a yes? And that's where you find that spiritual plug. You go back to that last time you got a yes and you plug in right there and you repeat that thing, right? But I do understand that you were born in Texas, correct? Yes. Okay, let's keep going from there. And you just keep going. You don't focus on the fact that you dropped off the face of the earth for a second. There was a woman who had come to me. She had some serious life questions. She had gone through a serious transformation. It was a deep session, and she was so focused that she couldn't, she just really wasn't very present. But I kept saying, I'm seeing a lucky charm. And she was like, nope. I'm like, I'm literally seeing a lucky charm, okay, 4-leaf clover. But what I want to say is luck or lucky, and it's a bracelet, like a charm bracelet. And she said, no. Kept going. I did the whole reading. Lots of other good, nice things happened. She felt better, came back to it. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about with this bracelet. 45 minutes later, she texted me that she had a bracelet that said Lucky Charm on it. She was wearing it during our call. So people have this like psychic amnesia is what we call it. You're probably getting the thing right, and they are off in their grief and their pain and their sorrow because they did not call you because they were having a good day, right? They called you because they were having a question that they cannot discern for themselves. And so we're holding somebody's life in the palm of our hands when we're offering spiritual information. And so I always wanted to make the decision yours. I'm not giving you a decision to make. I'm showing you some pathways that I'm seeing and validating that spirit is with you by giving you some little data that matches up. That's a synchronicity. I did a reading for a woman once that her father had passed and she was getting married. And the stupid words came out of my mouth, right? Your dad's going to be with you down the aisle. And I saying it, I'm like, really? Because that's what you would say, that's not psychic. That's just a thing that somebody would say. So I said, I need to give you some proof that is actually real, that he's really holding your hand right now. And the image I'm getting is a sand dollar. And I don't know this woman. She freaks out. She's crying. I'm crying. I'm like, what are we crying about? Like, what's the sand dollar? And she said that they don't live near the shore. They live inland, that they had cleaned out their fireplace the night before, and at the back of their fireplace was a sand dollar. Okay, so I don't need to know what the sand dollar is. I don't need to know what the symbol is. I don't need to get all woo and look up this, I just need to convey data that helps her know that her God is real and that he's there and that her dad's going to be with her as she goes down the aisle. You know what I mean? Like what a gift for somebody. So you can use this stuff so well. And you can also use this stuff so twisted. So my biggest takeaway is set your intention, know who you're talking to, develop that relationship. And yeah, just when you're nervous, be of service. You can't fire a volunteer. If somebody's paid you and you've done a bad job or they don't like it, refund them. No big deal. No sweat off your back. Ain't no problem. We made it to the top of the hour. Was I at least entertaining for you guys?
That was fantastic, Tiffany. So who has questions for Tiffany? Good. People are saying awesome. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful.
Bless you. Bless you.
So who has questions? Go ahead and unmute yourself because we're an intimate group and you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any questions for Tiffany? Or is everybody being shy? Well done.
We can answer them on the panel too if you came back. What happened at 14? When I was 14, Lisa? Is that what you're saying? My near-death experience? We had a car wreck. I was going on a mission trip to Mexico and we didn't make it. And this was long before cell phones, right? So long before cell phones. So we have the last thought I had was, we're not going to have a wreck. And I undid my seatbelt and I laid down and my aunt was driving and she drove off the road and overcorrected and it started the van spinning and we hit a block of concrete and then we hit oncoming traffic. So I was thrown from the vehicle. She had compound fractures. Bones were everywhere. It was a bloody, horrific show. And there's nothing anybody can do. Like we had to wait for a car to show up out here in far west Texas. So the next people that drove up that found us drove back to another town to get a phone to call emergency, who then came. And that's just too long of a time to be in shock, like you're in shock and your body protects your mind and your aura protect your body. So while the body's going through shock, it's like, I'm just going to hop out and hang out up here because this person's in too much pain to fathom. So for me, it was like a bird's eye view situation, a very typical bird's eye view, like looking down over it and then looking through the veil at the afterlife world. So in that moment, I started to believe many lies as well, right? Many lies, which were because I could see through the veil, because I could see spirit, because I could see and hear at a different level. And this, for your astrology enthusiasts, this happened the day that my progressed sun changed for the first time from Scorpio, death, in my 12th house, into Sagittarius, adventure, Mexico, the pulpit, travel, right? And it also was conjunct my natal Uranus. So Pluto conjunct Uranus in my 12th house. And on the day that my progressed sun changed signs for the first day. So it was a really, like, you could look at it and be like, yeah, something's up. I'm probably not going to let my kid go on a mission trip that day. But, that was divine, it was very divine. And so because I had these gifts that the church couldn't answer, or the adults couldn't answer, or the spiritual guides at the time couldn't answer, I started to believe a lie of rebellion, and I became very, very rebellious. And I didn't believe anybody could tell me what to do. You don't know, what my experience was, and you can't explain it. So my Mars is out of bounds in my first house, conjunct Neptune, and I just was a wild child. I borrowed my mom's car when I was 14, and we drove 4 hours away. And nobody could tell me what to do, and I didn't believe that anybody could help me either. So it took a long time of spiritual development to understand why can I see what you're not seeing? And why is it bad? It's not bad. Okay. And I just have spent my whole life discerning it. So it is my great pleasure and treasure and honor to help other people with their developing gifts as well. Right. So that's why I have broken it down the way I did.
Oh my goodness. I appreciate you sharing a bit of your story there, Tiffany, because that's not something that's
is in the bio.
Yeah. No, but that's fantastic. And thank you. Lisa said thank you also so much. This is fantastic. I loved your talk.
Bless you.
And I think everybody did too. So thank you. I am going to, are you going to be able to hang out so that, for Mia's talk, and then we'll do.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. I am going to introduce Mia. Hello, Mia.
Hi, Marie. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Perfect. So, Mia Lux how do you pronounce? Is it owner or not?
This is a great word. Oneironaut.
Oneironaut.
Oneironaut, as in like astronaut, cosmonaut, psychonaut, but onair is to be exploring in dreams. So like the astronaut, but of the dream space.
I love that. I love that word. And you're the first person I have heard use that word. So it's a new one. I love it. It's a dream explorer. And you're a dream explorer and a recovering lawyer. Love that too. So Mia has dedicated the last 7 years to training in both modern psychology, neurological approaches, and the Tibetan Buddhist lineage of lucid dreaming. She brilliantly fuses the wisdom of both in a practical, effective methodology for meaningful lucid dream practice. What began as a professional quest to overcome a crippling fear of death revealed lucid dreaming as a powerful pathway for psychological integration and spiritual development, a natural, trainable link to the deepest parts of our minds. Her presentation today is titled Lucid Dreaming at the Cutting Edge of Consciousness. Prepare to explore the extraordinary, scientifically verified state of lucid dreaming and discover how it can profoundly support your waking journey. Mia will touch upon its practice across wisdom traditions, the latest research, its awe-inspiring implications, and even give us a practical lucid dreaming quick start guide. So let's open our minds and give a warm welcome to Mia Lux. Mia, take the stage.
Thanks, Marie. Thank you for that very kind introduction and for the invitation to speak here. It's interesting because lucid dreaming is one of those paths of practice. Like I can bet every single person here has an idea or a connotation about what lucid dreaming is, whether that's that you watched Inception, or if you're like, I think when I was a teenager, I did that. Because this is a path that is inherently built into the way that our minds work. It's a natural, spontaneously arising experience, but it's also something that we can train as a skill and use as a pathway of practice for psychological integration or for the exploration of the nature of reality, for spiritual practice, and depending on your cosmology, but even for, interdimensional access. So I'm excited. I'm going to take you on like a little lucid dreaming 101 tour today and really map out for you why this practice is something that for so many of us can invite us to turn towards this part of our lives, dreaming and sleep, which we often ignore, don't think about, don't utilize, and really turn towards it in an intelligent way to support all of the other things we're doing in our waking state life. I call it, lucid dreaming for lucid living. They're two very interrelated states of being. But first, before we jump too far ahead of myself and I dive into all the extraordinary practices you can do in the dream, let's just start with the basics around, what is a lucid dream? And a lucid dream it's easy to think about what a lucid dream is not. So a lucid dream is not just a vivid dream. So a dream where you're like, wow, that was so memorable and so vivid and so realistic. That's not a lucid dream. It's not even a precognitive dream, which would be, having a dream where you dream something happens, and then sure enough, it happens in the next few days or months. It's not even that. It's a very specific and unique and verifiable brain state. And what defines a lucid dream is that you know that you're dreaming as you are dreaming. So it's an important and specific distinction in the quality of awareness. Easiest way to think about it, because I bet every single person here has had a lucid dream. Think about a time where you had a nightmare or an uncomfortable dream, and maybe in the dream, it got so uncomfortable that your mind started to reject that it was a dream. You're like, oh, no. And then it goes, this is a dream. And then you wake up. It literally, it hits the eject button, right? But that moment of awareness where you reject the illusion of the dream around you and recognize that this is a dream, that's a moment of lucidity. But with lucid dream training, of course, what we want to learn to do is to cultivate that lucidity more and more often, but more importantly, learn how to stay within a dream, how to stabilize the dreamscape, how to stabilize our lucidity in the dreamscape so that we can then do intentional collaborative experiences, right? And what's really cool is, I think people used to think lucid dreaming was this wacky, woo-woo, non-provable state. And I think the psychologists for like a century were negating that lucid dreaming existed. They said a lucid dream is just a dream where you're dreaming that you know that you're dreaming, but it's not in any way different to an actual dream, right? And I can understand that argument, but there were some amazing pioneers who were like, no. There's something neurologically different. They could feel it when they got lucid. Something is changing in the brain. And so great respect to some of the early pioneers, Keith Hearn, Stephen LaBerge, who pioneered in the 70s and 80s some experiments around this. And when they first proved lucid dreaming, so cool, how they did it was they took a lucid dreamer who was very experienced at getting lucid. And they said, okay, when you go into REM sleep, right, rapid eye movement, what happens with the body is that as you're dropping into dream, your body goes into paralysis so that you don't act out your dreams, except for your eyes and your breath. And so they theorized, they're like, okay, if we put a lucid dreamer in the lab, we put like a EEG, actually they didn't even have EEGs. No, yes, an EEG, those old school ones, where they attach all the electrodes. They put an EEG on the guy's head, and then they put muscle monitors around the eyes because the eyes can still move. And they said, listen, when you get into the dream, when you get lucid, send us a set of signals. Left, right, left, right. Kind of like a Morse code being sent from the dream world. And we'll be able to show with the EEG that your brain is in REM, that you're fast asleep, but now you're sending these very specific signals. So we'll be able to prove it's true. And they put this poor guy in the lab for a few nights, but one night right towards the end, they captured these signals and they were able to prove and really publish that lucid dreaming is a verified phenomenon. Now, since then, we've gone into even more extraordinary brain science around this. They even put someone in an fMRI scanner and they got lucid in there. So we had comprehensive brain scans. And I was part of a research study just recently where I spent 4 nights at Northwestern University. Same thing. They hooked me up to EEG scanners, eye muscle, breath monitor, all kinds of things to monitor, to see what happens in the brain when you do these advanced lucid dreaming practices. But what are some of the things they found, which is really important to understand before we go into like what you can do in a dream and why you might want to do it? Understanding what is happening in your brain is really important, because you'll grok the implications and it's going to blow your mind. So some of the research, what it's shown is that when you get lucid, that moment of lucid awareness where you go, I recognize this is a dream. What happens in that moment is actually, Tiffany was talking about the prefrontal cortex. So the right dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is again, a little part of the brain that associates with sense of self, around some personal memories, some kinds of impulse control. That part is actually normally relatively dormant when you're dreaming. So think about when you're dreaming and you're like dreaming that you're a different person, or you're in a different city or a different country, and your mind is so happy just to kind of go along with the confusing identity blurring. It's because these parts of your brain that are so tethered to your waking state self-structure, right? Like daytime Tony, daytime Lisa, daytime Nathan. That part of you is like a little bit more relaxed. It's a little more flexible. It's a little more open. It's a little more mercurial. When you get lucid, within seconds, they see in the scanner, that part of your brain completely reactivates. It's also the part of your brain associated with metacognitive awareness, which is what you train in most meditation practices, right? It's essentially becoming aware of your own sense of awareness. So it feels like when you get lucid in a dream, it kind of feels like, wow, like waking up out of a delusion. So we know, for instance, that there's a specific part coming online. What's super trippy is that what they also saw is that when you're having a lucid dream, your brain does not distinguish between the experience you have in a lucid dream and an experience it has in waking state. From a neurological level, you're having a real experience. And this is super important, because when we think about, okay, well, when you're lucid in a dream, all of your neuroplasticity is online, but you're in this extraordinary, limitless, high definition virtual reality simulator of your own mind, right? But you're grooving what you're doing with the same level of impact as if you're awake. That'll be important when we get to the things we can do. And then the other important implication here is, like, they look at the studies, like if you compare a brain scan of someone who's in REM and who's like dreaming, even non-lucid dreaming, and then a brain scan of someone who's wide awake, they're almost indistinguishable. The brain activity involved is almost the same, right? So you're like, there is this projection and this interpretation of external things and an enormous amount of data being processed. And we're just essentially having a waking state style experience, but contained within the stimulus of our own minds. So this is really cool, because we start to see that when we start to work intentionally with our dreams, we're not working with this like vague, iffy, weird other thing over here. We're actually working with one of the most sort of like activated and connected aspects of our own psyche and mind. And when we get lucid in our dreams, we are directly connecting your conscious waking state self, so your little self structure that's here right now listening to this, who thinks it's everything. I think this is who I am. I'm pretty sure this is who I am. I'm Mia. That piece of you, when it comes online within the greater sub and unconscious aspects of yourself that create the whole dream, you now have a direct and personal line to those greater parts of yourself. And that's why I love what Tiffany was sharing about becoming your own, astrologer, becoming your own, intuitive healer. Lucid dreaming is all about that. You're taking out the middleman. Anything you could do when you're doing visualization, hypnosis, therapy, parts work, any of that stuff, you are doing directly within your own unconscious mind with no middleman. So it's super, super powerful. And so, when we think about this, we're like, okay, well, this is a state that has some pretty serious implications. What do we do? What on earth would you do when you end up, let's say tonight, every single one of you, just because by listening to this, it got into your brain, you planted the seed, and you're in some dream tonight and something clues you in. You're like, wait a second. I don't live in Tokyo. What is going on? And you go, wait, whoa, 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 this is a dream. And you get lucid. One of the biggest troubles people face when they're first training is that they get lucid in the dream and they're so excited and they're so almost like overwhelmed by the magical experience of the realization, they wake themselves right up, right? So at the end of this, I'm going to teach you the practical steps so that when you do get lucid next, you'll make sure you know how to stabilize that lucidity and stay in the dream longer. But I'll teach it at the end when we get more practical. But let's just imagine we're able to do that tonight. And we can explore the question of, okay, what can we use lucid dreaming for? I think this is where it's helpful to look at some of the human history and the traditions that have used lucid dreaming. Because, while the neuroscience is relatively new, right? It's like 1980s and building up. I mean, these practices have been skillfully used and taught for millennia. And, I practice and trained within the Tibetan Buddhist context for many reasons, but the Tibetan Buddhists hold some of the most comprehensive and detailed teachings around what they call dream yoga. Dream yoga includes lucid dreaming, but also moves through astral projection and into the non-dual sleep yoga practices and into the bardo practices, which is the preparing to die practices. And so the nocturnal meditations are extraordinary, and some of the kind of the advanced completion practices in Dzogchen and Vajrayana. So the Tibetan Buddhists have like an amazing body of knowledge around the dream work. But then you also have the Toltecs, right? So I'm sure many of you have heard of Carlos Castaneda and that kind of thing. Some pros and cons there. But there's some incredible Toltec practitioners, who are specialized in dream work, and for them, they have a very strong relationship with dreaming because they believe things originate in the dream state, and that things in the waking state come as a result of what happens in the dreaming state. Similar with like the Australian Aboriginal people, they have this concept of dream time, which is more real than waking state. And if you look at most shamanistic traditions, whether it's like in Siberia or the Native Americans, most of those cultures, the shamans use dreaming, dream induction, but lucid dreaming too, in order to be able to navigate the realms, to talk to ancestors, to bring in healing, to go collect souls. The dream world is essentially like kind of interdimensional lubricant. And if they get lucid in that realm, they're able to navigate more easily than simply being in waking state. So there's a long history of practice all around the world. I mean, even in Greece, and even in like the Western traditions, lucid dreaming has been something that's always been part of human history. Again, because this is something that happens spontaneously. Children lucid dream, teenagers lucid dream a lot. It's built into who and how we are as human beings. It's not like an artificial thing we're trying to do. The reason we don't lucid dream very often is simply because we don't live in a culture that has held dreaming with any significant regard. You think about what you grew up hearing about dreams, right? Dreams are silly. It's just a dream. Don't worry about it. Maybe if you're a kid, you had nightmares, you brought them to your parents, they just dismissed it. We've ultimately been conditioned to think of the dreaming world as a subset, a less significant subset of waking state. But according to who? According to waking state brain. I promise you, when you get lucid and you step into this unbelievable, vast sub-unconscious mind, you realize the conscious mind is the subset in a wonderful way. So within these traditions, why are they doing this? Why is there been these millennia of practitioners and teachers and shamans doing this work? And it's like, well, because in this space, we are transcending so many of the waking state limitations. We're so ingrained in a habit of mind here. I mean, the Tibetan Buddhists think about karma. Really what they're talking about is habit of mind, just habit of mind. And habit of mind has cause and effect. You do X, Y happens. And we just have this habit of making everything in waking state really real, really solid. And I mean, think about someone it's easier to do this with other people. Of course, we're all guilty of this. But if you think of someone who has like a really strong perspective about something, maybe there is someone who's always, like they always have like a grumpy vibe about a certain thing. And you can just see, they see everything in their world through that lens. And because of that, what happens? It's always happening to them. Always. Things are always going wrong. They're always having people being mean to them. Like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because of how they're like navigating the world. We all do that to a certain extent. Now, the dream world has a type of flexibility and openness. It takes all the rules of magic from waking state, but it makes them immediately accessible. And so here we can train in beautiful ways that take a little bit more time in the waking state. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call it the example dream or the secondary dream. And you can think to yourself, okay, if the nighttime dream is a secondary dream, what's the primary dream or the primary delusion? Waking state. And so the Tibetan Buddhists use dreaming as a kind of playground and a kind of incubator for working with the same principles that apply to waking state, but in more flexibility. It's easier than doing it in waking state. And so what are the things that people do here? I think I'll start with, there's one of my mentors, Andrew Holacek. He's a wonderful, he really specializes in like death and dying and dark retreat and dream yoga. And he helped break up the original Tibetan teachings. The original Tibetan teachings teach like 3 stages of dream yoga, and they're so broad. They're like the biggest buckets ever. So he very intelligently created a more nuanced version, which is the 9 stages of dream yoga. And so the first stage of dream yoga is getting lucid, right? So learning how to recognize the dream. And this is where you'll start most of your training around this, like really building the skill to reverse the habit of mind that has you just not even know that you're dreaming. So that's stage 1. But then stage 2 and 3, you work with, learning how to see through the delusion of the dream. So one of the first practices you learn if you're a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner is how to walk through walls in a dream. But you might think, well, yeah, if you're in a dream, well, duh, right? But the crazy thing is, even when you know that you're dreaming, because the habit of mind is so strong, it often takes people a while to learn how to walk through to walk through a wall. And even for a while, your mind will create the experience of like sludginess or resistance. It takes actually a lot of practice. It's almost like this is like magic training to take the perspective. The dream is fundamentally empty. Everything I see in front of me is a construction of my mind. It feels like a wall, but I know there's no wall there. This is not even my hand. This hand is a construction. And to take that perspective with enough confidence that when you move through the wall, there is no wall. And so it sounds like a simple practice, but think again, neuroplasticity. You're now rewiring a concept and an openness, which speaks to waking state. We're like, look, and go into the quantum physics enough, you're like, wow, yeah, everything here is fundamentally open. So this is how it kind of ties into the awakening practices. But you can go beyond kind of moving with physics, whether it's, reversing gravity, collapsing space and time in the dream, learning how to travel through a dream without using your body, all these kinds of things that help you to break the habit of being in a physical space. And then you can move into more psychological practices. And, for me personally, lucid dreaming played a big role in me recovering from PTSD, and it played a big role in what I would call my psychological integration. I was a very disintegrated person. Had some, really challenging adverse childhood events and a disorganized attachment style. And, for my early 20s, it was an incredibly challenging way of being in the world. And I'm really grateful because with lucid dreaming, because it is this direct integrative path, when you do psychological healing in a dream, the integration is instantaneous. So for instance, anyone here who's familiar with, internal family systems, you think about how internal family systems, you kind of learn how to talk to and identify different parts of yourself, realizing that, again, our constructed sense of who we are, like day waking state Barb and waking state Marie, not just one consistent thing. Like we have these different subminds. And we learn in IFS how to like work with those subminds. In a lucid dream, you can summon any aspect of your psychological self. So like, for instance, one of the practices I've done is to go in and, I'll work with shadow elements. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to summon, my creativity shadow, anything that I've suppressed or ignored around it. And so I'll go into lucid dream, I'll stabilize it, I'll say, creativity shadow, come to me. Turn around with the expectation it's going to be there. And the dream will create the most perfectly symbolic representation of what that shadow is for you. And it will come to you. Then you can ask it questions. Like, where do you come from? What do you need from me? Or simply just embrace and integrate it. And when I did, when I first started this training, oh my God, it was like 8 years ago, I did 18 months of what they call transformational fear practice, which is where all you work with in the dream are shadow aspects or nightmare aspects. And I went through and like, I can't tell you how many hundreds of zombies and ghouls and monsters and men with guns and every bloody nightmare figure, right? How many of those figures I have grabbed and hugged. I do the Ho'oponopono prayer. I'm like, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you, forget. I just, and integrated. But because you're doing this, again, remember, within a context where you, as your brain, thinks it's real, because it is real, when you integrate and you do those practices, it has an extraordinary impact on your life. It's not like you just imagined it. It happened to you. And in a dream, you can feel everything, right? Feel, smell, touch, all of it. So it's a fully sensorial experience that creates this integration, It's squishy. Tony, I tell you what, it is so gross. It was the first, zombies were like, I don't know if you guys can see, but in the background here of a skeleton, that's calcifer, my skeleton. He was part of my daytime fear practice. So I was so afraid of skeletons. I bought a 6-foot anatomically correct one, and he sat in my room at nighttime, and I worked with him as part of my fear practice. But yeah, when I go into the dream, then suddenly, I'd be having a dream where I'm in a graveyard, and there's a whole bunch of zombies coming towards me. I remember once it was too overwhelming. There were like 200 coming towards me, and I was lucid. But even when you're lucid, like, it's realistic. Like, if you guys ever done VR, and you're like, oh, VR, you put it on, you're like, whoa. I mean, a lucid dream is more realistic than VR because you can smell and taste. And yeah, like, it took me a long time before I had the courage to actually go up to those zombies and fully embrace them. But when I did it with those 200 zombies, I took one and I just held him and I hugged him and I loved him. And within about 5 or 10 seconds, all 200 zombies stopped what they were doing and started cracking up laughing, like they just told the greatest joke. And then they all transformed into normal people and just walked away and did their thing. And I don't dream about zombies or skeletons anymore. And if I see a skeleton in my dream, I'm always like, hey, it's Calcifer's friend, right? The transformation of fear practices are profound because they allow us to go in and work directly with any shadow parts or any nightmare content, which is essentially just parts of our mind that have been disowned and they want love from us. And we can do this in waking state for sure. When you do it in a lucid dream, there's just like, there's no way to explain it. It's more psychedelic than a psychedelic because it's a fully immersive, realistic environment. So psychological integration is great. And you can do this with positive things too, right? So you can summon your higher self. You can summon your inner goddess. You can essentially work with your dream in a collaborative way by giving prompts, kind of like with ChatGPT. You really learn how to create what I call like a sankalpa. It's like an intention statement. Get lucid, you say your sankalpa, and then you collaborate with the dream, and you can learn way more about all kinds of aspects of yourself. It doesn't have to be just, shadow work. But from a psychological experience and a perspective of exploration, extraordinary. So that's another way we can use it. And then, of course, we can do spiritual practice. And it's useful to know, like, people go, oh, what's the difference between dream yoga and lucid dreaming? And I think the best definition I've really heard of this, I think, was really from Andrew, and he was explaining it as, most lucid dreaming is about working with the psychological self. So it's like doing the cleaning up work, the growing up work. It's really like bringing all the mind systems into a kind of empowered integration. Beautiful. And I think very important. We need strong, healthy, efficacious selves. Dream yoga then tends to emphasize more the transcendence of self. So this is really where the dream yoga practices, the Tibetan Buddhist practice naturally with the focus on this idea of emptiness or openness, which just means that, reality is fundamentally constructed by our minds and that there's no kind of inherent substance. Doesn't mean it's not important, but understanding the flexibility and the openness of the world, just like the openness of the dream. And so in the dream practices, a lot of what they encourage people to do are like transformation of the body. So I've transformed myself into I've been a bird and I've flown, and I can't even explain to you, I don't know how my mind knew how to create new bone structures and the sensation of flying. I've been a horse, I've been a dragon. So learning how to transform the body so that we stop reifying this particular form, right? So again, just like softening the attachment to the outer delusion. But then also working, with these spiritual practices, like, in Tibetan Buddhism, we call it like deity practice or guru yoga, where the traditional practice would be you'd work with one of the Buddhas that you think is, embodies values that you like. So for instance, Avalokiteshvara is the Buddha of compassion. So let's say you wanted to work with the values of compassion and you want to bring more compassion into your life. When you go into lucid dream, you would summon Avalokiteshvara. But it could equally be Jesus, or it could be, someone you admire. Anything like what we're doing is we're creating an external representation of the values. And then what you do is you merge with it. So I summon Avalokiteshvara, and then you merge with that experience. It's hard to put into words because the conscious mind is playing a relatively small part when you're in the lucid dream. Like you're like, hey, I have an idea. Can we do this? And then the dreaming mind is like, yes, little one, let's do it. And it will create this extraordinary experience for you, right? And you get to show up and be part of it, but it's so much bigger than you as your waking state mind. So when you do these kinds of generation stage practices, I mean, it's some of the most spiritual experiences I've had in my life. Because it's really extraordinary. But you can also do practices like anything that you do in waking state. So Qigong, when you do Qigong in a dream, you actually feel and see the Qi, right? When you root your feet down like a tree, your feet will grow into roots. So you're now working in this like immediately thought responsive visual environment, which is kind of like being a magician or a sorcerer. Tonglen, so one of the practices we do, or you could do like loving kindness, compassion meditation, any kind of spiritual practice you do in the waking state, when you do it in the dreaming state, it just amplifies. Because if you think about it like this, in waking state, my perspective is that, we are in a sort of more of a shared dream. It's not just my mind. It's more like there is a collective nature to it. I do think that's true. And so here, I believe there's magic here. It's just a little slower, like I think, and that's why if you get a bunch of minds together in waking state and you really intend something together, it's much more powerful than one. But there's just like a longer lag time here. Synchronicity happens, but it could take 3 to 10 minutes to 2 months, right? In the dream, it's immediate, right? It's immediately thought responsive because you're working within your own mind. And so what this means is that when you're doing a meditation practice or you're doing a spiritual practice, as you embody that state, the entire dream changes, which is why, when I teach my students around nightmare training, I teach them something called an automatic compassion response, and they learn how to have a default automatic response to fear with compassion. So when they're in a nightmare, imagine this happens. I don't know if you have, what's like a common nightmare? Being chased. You're being chased by some mysterious, scary, potentially violent thing. Horrible feeling. But imagine you're being chased, but you have trained to prepare yourself to either get lucid or to respond to fear with compassion. If you turn around to the person that's chasing you in a dream and you just emanate loving acceptance, the whole dream will change. If you respond to that figure with fear, it feeds back into the dream and creates more fear. And that's why, have you ever noticed in a dream, like something slightly scary happens and you're like, oh no, I think that means something bad. And then that bad thing happens. It's like we're in our own self-fulfilling prophecies. Life too, but immediate. So here, the spiritual practices, you see you can see the direct impacts of what it means when you do your spiritual practice. So, and then the more advanced practices, I'll just kind of tap them here because they're interesting, but learning how to generate an astral body so you can leave the physical body and traverse. So that's an incredible way to use lucid dreaming as well. Takes real training. And then we work into sleep yoga, which is where we learn to stay conscious, not just in the REM state, but as the self structure opens and dissolves into deep dreamless sleep. And so it's hard to put into words, but the maintenance of awareness through all states. When they say that the masters never slept, their bodies slept, but they were always aware. So the continuity of awareness is exactly what is being trained. And the nighttime practices are a big piece of what help us to train that. Because, it's always amazing to me. Most of my students are much older than me and people who are, I'd say, really advanced daytime practitioners with meditation. But we're so seduced with the nighttime to just zonk out. We're tired. I've worked hard today. I just want to go to bed. We have this fear of what would it mean to have to be aware in my dreams and my sleep? Where actually it's the opposite, right? What we're battling here isn't tiredness. We're battling our addiction to ignorance. Lucidity is awakening. Non-lucidity is ignorance. And what we're doing is through being lucid in our dreams, by bringing this kind of awareness, this compassion, this strength into our dreaming state, when you wake up the next day, it is with such profound, aware, awake eyes. They're not two distinct things, right? You've got to realize the dreaming mind, the waking mind are just different expressions of the same thing. And so the more we practice during the day to bring lucidity into the night, the more we get lucid in the night, the more we bring lucidity into today. And what we're doing is we're using the sister practices, the waking state practices, the nocturnal practices to reverse that habit of ignorance and to create higher levels of awareness. And what does this mean? I mean, it's just freedom, right? What is lucidity? Lucidity is Tiffany was talking about in terms of let's say nervous system hijack. If you're non-lucid, you could really get triggered by someone, yell at them, stay angry for 2 days and not even realize, right? But if you're lucid, just like if you were in a dream and let's say the dream was a slightly uncomfortable dinner with friends. No, not even a nightmare. You're just at a dinner and it's awkward and it's uncomfortable. Maybe someone was talking behind your back or whatever. And it's just Nyeh. But let's say you get lucid. Suddenly, you completely have a different relationship with what you just saw. You're no longer oh, well, those bloody dream figures, you're aware. You're huh. And you have the right perspective and you're not upset about anything. Even if it's a monster, more you train, you turn around, I get lucid. Hi, peace of my mind. With a gun, what do you have to tell me, right? It completely changes your perspective. It's the same in waking state. If you can keep your presence and your lucidity bright as you are moving through your life, your ability to be present and respond and be compassionate and to be brave are radically altered. And the brightest people you see, like Buddha was the ultimate lucid dreamer. He was he woke up, he got lucid in waking state. The same awareness and awakening you will have in a dream when you get lucid. You're I'm just doing it. And then, holy moly, everything around me is constructed. Everything around me is me and we are one. Wow, love and compassion is the only way through this. All those insights that you have in a lucid dream, that's what Buddha had, right? And Jesus and all the great masters of the human wisdom traditions, this insight, this recognition. And then one last thing of where we can go with this, if you have been following or interested in the telepathy tapes, it's a great podcast series. Has anyone been watching that, listening to that? No, it's a really interesting documentary podcast where this woman she's exploring the stories of these autistic non-speaking children and their families, because for decades it's showing this unbelievable existence and prevalence of telepathy among them, among other things. Incredible. But it has a really great special mention of lucid dreaming, because a few of the parents, they can't talk verbally to their children during the day because their kids are non-speaking, but the kids taught the parents how to lucid dream by coming to the dreams, like with this one mother, like literally waking her up. And so she lucid dreams and talks to her child during the night with the dreaming to confirm things. And like the stories of the confirmations are credible. But also there have been people who like work with these children. Actually, one of them was one of my clients who was able to use lucid dreaming to go and visit the like non-corporeal place that they meet called the Hill. It's kind of like it's in the astral realm, essentially. I guess you could put it that way. And he was able to use lucid dreaming to move into that space. So kind of like, again, taking from the personal and out into the astral. Now, this may sound way out there. None of this is scientifically verified yet, but I think it's an interesting exploration. I've definitely had experiences like this, had a dear friend pass away, and her parents couldn't tell. I think obviously they were grieving, so none of us knew how she died, and it was pretty distressing, and she was young, and so I wanted to make sure I'd see if she was, in the Tibetan tradition, there's like a 49-day period in Nevada where you can like help people cross, and you can use dreams to do this. And so I called her into a dream, and she showed up, and she was super confused, and she was like holding her head. She kept saying, "Oh, my head hurts. God, my head hurts so much." But I did the prayers for her. And anyway, like 2 weeks later, when they finally did the thing, we found out that she slipped in the shower and hit her head and died, which is wild, right? And she was, unfortunately. And I remember like having a couple experiences like that where I'm like, wow, like the dream is also kind of a fluid space for people who have passed, and I had other experiences like that, but I had so many strong confirmations of it now. And I'm sure many people have had experiences like that where past loved ones have come to them or you knew ahead of time. So, a lot of the people who come to learn lucid dreaming, maybe they had lost a spouse and they want to use lucid dreaming to get closure or to just have that relationship in a different realm again. So that's a little bit more kind of into the unverified lands of woo-woo, but the show, Lisa, is the telepathy tapes. It's beautifully done. And just, they've done it so credibly. It's really great. I can't recommend it enough. All right. So all that said, I would love to give you guys a quick start on how to actually begin this process. The first thing I'll say is, like, obviously within such a limited time, I can't give you the type of training. I do my trainings are 6-month trainings, right? So when people come on board with me, they train with me for 6 months because what we're doing here is working at the very, very roots of our minds. And so I'm going to give you the super high level that can just get you started. But if you are interested in this kind of stuff, then, there's so many free resources out there where you can kind of start learning. I love Charlie Morley, dear friend. His book, Dreams of Awakening, is my favorite beginner's book. So if you wanted a book to start that will give you everything you need, and it's in the Tibetan Buddhist context, it's beautiful. Dreams of Awakening by Charlie Morley, I recommend that. But you can kind of go on your own learning rabbit hole. But this is where it starts. First of all, by just taking, the perspective that the dreaming mind is an incredible, powerful, intelligent aspect of ourselves. Part of us, bigger, like we in many ways are subs of it. And to understand that dreaming is a relational process. It's not something you do. You couldn't if you tried, I promise. You don't do it. It's a collaborative effort with this incredible intelligence. And you talk about intuition, like intuition isn't us, right? It's like all these unbelievable intelligent systems operating in the background. And so just coming in first with a sense of like respect and awe and reverence and relationship. When I did 4 nights in a sleep lab in Northwestern doing the brain studies on the dream yoga to see like what happens when we do these advanced dream yoga practices. Can they record any differences in the brain? And the third night, I don't know. I got really stressed out because, you're being observed and I didn't want to let anybody down. And so my conscious mind got all outcome dependent. It was like, people pleasy, don't let them down. They're staying up all night to do this for you, And so what happened was that my conscious mind was like, okay, I'm going to dream. I'm going to dream. And you know what happened? I lay awake all night. I didn't have a single REM period because my conscious mind was trying so hard to dream, where actually to dream, your conscious mind has to disintegrate. Your conscious mind has to like Self-structure has to open, 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 because dreaming is a much more liminal experience than waking state. And so it's really good to have a healthy appreciation that like, this is a collaboration. So starting with that perspective. And then from a practical sense, you first want to lay a foundation of like great dream recall. And there's really a bookend system we use for this. The first is what I would call like attention, and then there's intention. And we'll start with attention, which is this idea of like, okay, if we're building a relationship with our dreaming minds, what's one of the most important ways to build a relationship? It's like to listen, right? Like it's no fun being with a friend who just goes, like talks at you. I want this. Can you give me this? So if you show up to your dream mind, you're like, I want to get lucid. Give it to me. Dream mind might not be so thrilled. But if you show up and you first say, hey, I'd love to get to know you more. Tell me more about you. Wow, it's so cool. And you show up and you're attentive and you're curious and you're listening, the relationship blossoms. So the way we listen to start is just simple. We dream journal. And a dream journal, thinking of this as like a way to open a space to non-judgmentally receive whatever is happening. And the way I like to teach dream journaling is really specific. So I'm just going to bang it out for you guys. First, the first thing you do when you wake up is you do not move. Stay still. Something about the physicality of your body posture connects to dreams. So if you can just wake up and stay still, and then you're going to, instead of getting up and grabbing things and just jumping on with your day, turn the attention back inside and ask, where was I? What was I just doing? What was I just feeling? Who was I with? And let yourself start to gather the details of a dream. And you'll see, like, you pull one little thread and then more will come. And so like marinate in the dreams. And even if you can't remember anything, see if you can just sense a feeling. And then once you've kind of got that juicing, then you're going to take your dream journal. If it's an app on your phone, I mean, I'll show you, like I use an app. Make sure you turn off your phone, like in terms of like no Wi-Fi, no, put it on airplane mode. But you'll see like how I do it is super simple. I don't even use like a dreaming app. I just do it on my notes like this. So like dreams, I can't really see with the camera, but I just have a dreams app like this. I mean, my notes app on my phone, and just literally I roll over. You can do it in a written handbook, whatever you choose, put it right next to your bed, ready to go. So stay still. Once you've got it, roll over. When you do your dream journal, note down the key things, but here's the trick. Always note down the emotional tone of the dream. This is what people often don't. As well as the experiences, like start to get curious, like what was the tone? Was it like we could, Lisa and I could both have dreams about airports, but mine is like terrified, stressed out. I'm missing my plane. For Lisa, she might miss her plane in the dream, but she's so relieved because it was like going to something she really didn't want to go to. So also just check in with the tone. It becomes something very useful later in the trainings that you can use. But so starting there, that's the attention. Now we go to intention. Intention would be the way we enter into sleep. And I know, we talk so much, I think, in self-help about like your morning routine, like do your morning routine, set yourself up for the day. And it's true, because creating the correct mindset and state of body changes how you experience your day, right? It's the same thing with sleep. There's this idea in Tibetan Buddhism I love, which is proximate karma, which is the idea that before a transition, so like before you die, before you sleep, whatever you were thinking or feeling just before that moment, there's a disproportionate impact on what happens. So proximate karma. And so we use this with sleeping by the last 5 minutes before you go to sleep, by setting a really strong intention and induction. And the simplest way to do this is, let's say you're working on having more dream recall, so you want to remember your dreams better. The induction you would use is something like, tonight I remember my dreams, or tonight my dreams are so vivid, right? You could design something that's going to really set the intention for clear dreams. If you're working on inducing lucidity, it might be something like, I recognize I'm dreaming as I'm dreaming. I get lucid in my dreams. You'd set an intention around lucidity. But the practice would be the same, which is that last thing you do before you go to sleep, turn the lights off, jump into bed. If you're a side sleeper, stay on your back. If you're a back sleeper, roll to your side. Take the position you don't normally fall asleep in, and then relax the body. So take a few breaths, kind of let it go. Make sure your mind is getting a little bit clearer. And then you're going to repeat that induction 15 times until you feel it like a yes in your body, right? We all know what a yes feels like. Yes. We know what a no feels like. No. You want the induction to land like a yes in your body. So tonight, I remember my dreams. 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 Right? And then once you've done that enough times, there's no magic number, but I say at least 15 because I want you to like feel it in your bodies. Then go to your normal sleeping position and just go to sleep. But this way, from a very beginning starting perspective, you're bookending it. You're running in with an induction and you're catching it in the morning. Attention, intention. From a more psychological, neurological perspective, the inductions are so powerful. They're priming, right? You're consciously priming. We know that like if you unconsciously prime someone, like let's say like we're talking and I just have like a bright yellow t-shirt on and then I say, think of a fruit, you're more likely to think of a banana just because you're unconsciously primed. 20 to 30% more likely. If you consciously prime yourself, you double your ability of remembering your dreams or getting lucid. So conscious priming, but it's also like you think about when you go to the airport, let's say you've got an early flight, you got to catch the flight like 5 o'clock. So you've got to set the alarm for 3 o'clock. All night long, what happens? You're like waking up going, is it time yet? Did the alarm go off? And that's just because you have this metacognitive awareness running because you have such a strong intention. Oh, I got to wake up tomorrow. I got to wake up. So it's the same thing with this. We're leveraging that to have this metacognitive awareness that all night long, your mind is looking for your dreams or looking to recognize that you're dreaming. So those two things are really, really powerful. And then we'll just dip into one final little practice, which is around how to work with this in the waking state. And I think like this is such an important and profound thing to do no matter what, even if you're not a dreamer. The reason why we aren't lucid in our dreams, even though there's pink elephants and dead loved ones and we're all over the place, is because we never really question where we are. Like during this call, how many of you have been like, wait, am I dreaming? Right? Like we very rarely question our reality. We're just like, and so of course in the dream, we bring that same habit of mind. So kind of like unreflective, really like in our thought streams. And so we don't necessarily notice. And in fact, sometimes what happens, you notice something weird and what does the brain do? It just kind of confabulates. You're like, why am I in Tokyo? Oh, because remember we said that we're just taking a trip there for 2 days. Oh, okay. And so one of the ways we wake up in our dreams is by waking up in our waking state. And what that means is instead of getting sucked into the non-lucid thought stream of your mind, you take moments throughout the day, as many as you can remember, to be like, wait a second, which state am I in? Am I in the waking state, the dreaming state, the death state? Like, which state am I in? Like, how do I know where I am right now? And to actually like take a bigger perspective out of where you are, to get really present. And so how we do this is really simple. You can do it with me. We start by just opening the visual field. Okay, hang on, wait a second. Let me get out of my myopic thing. Open the eyes and up to the periphery and start to go, whoa, really look at your surroundings. Look at the quality of light. Take a moment to use like your mindfulness sensorial practices, like 10 seconds. And take a 1 breath meditation. Andrew teaches us a lot. 1 breath like this. And then you're going to say, okay, I think I'm in waking state, but let me check. And this is where you use something we call a state check. And the state check we're going to use today is with our hands. So do this with me. Put your hand out in front of you. And I want you to choose like a tiny spot or area on your hand. And I want you to like memorize the wrinkles, the dots, all of it. So you got it in your eyes. And then when you've got it, I want you to turn your hands over and then flip them back and check if anything changed. And then do it again. Did anything change? No. Okay, cool. If nothing changed, you're probably in waking state. Because what we're doing here is we're leveraging the fact that in a dream, the left hemisphere of your brain is pretty dormant. So it struggles with any kind of detail, letters, numbers, patterns, right? So in a dream, if you look really closely at your hands and you flip it over and you move it back, the brain almost can't keep up with that type of detail replication. So you know what happens? You lose a finger, your hand grows, you get a claw, like it just goes crazy. And then you're like, oh, so if you do this in a dream, you will immediately realize I'm in the dream state. So we do these mindful moments of like, whoa, where am I? Checking in. And we do a state check to see. And then either way, if you're in waking state, you go, yeah, wow, I'm in waking state. I'm a human being having a conscious experience in this precious human life in waking state. Amazing. And if you do it in the dream, of course, you go, wow, I'm in a dream, I'm lucid. Woohoo! But if you could do that 10 times a day, what happens? First of all, you bring more lucidity in your waking state. Become more aware, more present, more attuned to the life that you're living. You don't get up and then it's 6 o'clock and you're like, what even happened today? Or 2 weeks, or a month, or a year, right? So we create this, we punctuate our lives with as much brightness and awareness as a habit. And then at nighttime, that habit starts to flow over. One of my favorite things is I'm often in my dreams teaching lucid dreaming. And what happens? I'm teaching state checks and I have no idea I'm dreaming. No idea. I teach a state check. I'm like, and then what you do is you look at your hands and I'm like it's mind blowing. So often if you just keep doing this, it'll start to create a pattern in your mind. To remind yourself, you can set alarms, you can put little sticky notes around the house. But again, aim for like 5 to 10 of these a day, high quality. And then you'll start to notice a difference at nighttime too. So those 3 will work as a really strong foundation. I promised you I'd teach you a little bit about the stabilization. So if you do get lucid, what I want you to do is rather than just getting like so excited you wake yourself up, when you get lucid, I want you to practice that the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a deep breath and you're going to start walking. Walking in the dream world. You're going to squeeze your dream body because this helps the mind to ground into the sensorial reality of the dream so you don't jump back into your physical body. You're saying to the dream, to your mind, this is my body, this is where we are. And you're walking, which creates a little bit of movement and relaxation. So you get lucid, you walk, you squeeze your dream body, and you say out loud, this is a lucid dream. And then you start repeating biographical information. My name is Mia, I live in Osaro, Costa Rica, I have 3 cats. And what you're doing is you're helping that little part of the brain, the right dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, come back online. So you're stabilizing the lucidity while stabilizing the dream. And if the dream ever gets rocky, eyes open, arms out, and spin, all the visual data helps ground the mind back into the dream. So if the dream is ever wobbling or looking like it's going to break, you can always use that. And once you stabilize a dream, then you're able to work within it. And if you ever have it rocky, you can just restabilize it. And you can have dreams up to, 20, 30 minutes. So anyway, that's it, guys. That's the high level. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, that was fantastic, Mia. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Before we move into the final segment, which is the panel discussion, does anyone have any questions that Mia can answer directly here? Okay. Lisa's like, thank you. Tiffany said, this is such a good, important reminder. Thank you. Any questions? If not, we will move into the panel discussion and you can always ask Mia her questions there. Oh, let's see. Tiffany said she has a question. Okay, go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay. Mia, awesome. Nice to meet you.
All right.
I have vivid dreams that I remember, and I also write them down in my notes. And so I'm like, yes, great. That's how the pros do it, of course. But how do you answer where we go when we're sleeping? I don't understand why we sleep so much. Where are we? We're in a non-local reality. We're gathering data. It may not be an answerable question, but because you've studied it, I'm wondering what's an answer I could give my clients as well.
It's a beautiful question. And I'd say you can answer it from so many cosmologies, right? Because this
Right.
will come down ultimately to a cosmological perspective, because you can look at it from like, okay, what's the body doing? And there's a physiological explanation. I don't think it gives the whole picture, right?
Right.
It's more like a clue. So I'll just speak from my cosmology. You can take what you like from it.
Yeah, great.
So the way that I work with sleep is that thinking about the sleeping process, knowing there's different phases in that sleeping process, right? And starting with, like, you think about the self structure as being the most kind of stiff, contracted piece of what we are. Like, it really thinks it knows. When you go into different stages of sleep, this releases. And so, for instance, when you drop down all the way to deep sleep, there is no sense of self. There is an awareness, but there is no sense of self. And here we say, well, we're actually abiding in the non-dual reality, right? So that's the idea in this way. And you could say here, it's just fully the soul that's online, not so much the ego. Different ways you can think about it. Now, when you come back up in the dreaming space, this is where it gets interesting, because, I mean, some people will say, the dreaming realm is just a psychological construct inside your own head. I think that's a big piece of it. I think you're definitely working within your own psychic environment, but it does seem like it profoundly overlaps and interconnects with a collective field. And so you can say, well, what is that plane? Maybe it's the astral plane, like definitely seems to have these big overlaps. There's different theories around it. I would just put it as, I like to explain it as we have almost like a personal psychological space, and then we can intersect with and leave and go into other collective spaces. And this is where, people go and they start exploring the Akashic records, or they have dream teachers come to them. Half the Tibetan Buddhist teachings were delivered by dream, so. But I think what's really important is to create safety for people, is to understand that, like, you're not being thrown out into some kind of wild west all the time, that we have these like layers of like intimacy and privacy. I think it's kind of more like it's nested. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But the cool thing is sort of like usually, like, I really feel like we're on the frontier exploring all this stuff. So I think it's like, also, as you explore it, it's like you're going to write your own map for it too. We all get to write the maps and hopefully compare notes, and hopefully in a decade or 2 decades, we'll have better tech to figure it out.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that question, Tiffany. All right. Everyone who has been a speaker is now on the stage. We have Kesley, who is back, and she's going to be on the stage along with Tiffany and Thea. We have a full crew here. I love it. All right, let's open it up for questions. I think the first question also comes, Lisa wrote a question, and I think it was for Mia, where she had TED Talk. Is Lisa, is that what are you asking, if there was a TED Talk?
I can send you to a great TED Talk. So again, I would say, if you want to see the Tibetan Buddhist perspective, there is, I think Jongkum Rinpoche talks about it, but Charlie Morley actually has a really great one on PTSD. They did some incredible studies on how impactful lucid dreaming is for PTSD. So if you want to see it from a mental health perspective, it's really amazing. I haven't done one, Lisa. No, not yet. I tend to, I've been very much in the world of like building a teaching pedagogical platform. So, but hopefully one day.
That's so good. Thank you. All right. Who else has a question? Tony, you're on camera, so you're pretty.
I don't have any questions. I'll be honest with you. It's been great listening to Tiffany and to Mia, and it was very straightforward. What can I say? It was just very straightforward. It was understandable. Also, I had a lot of distractions going on over here.
Were you in waking state or dream state?
Well, every time I check the back of my hand, it was the same. So
I love it.
it's a strong signal. I'm awake.
I love it. Kesley, there was a question yesterday from one of the participants, and because you were talking about the sun and the work and finding the thing that you're supposed to do, and the person, I believe it was Jill Jill Gross, who said she wanted to know how does she find her thing? And so I asked her to come back today to ask you that question.
Yes. I think it's a combination of consciousness, right? Like one way that I went about it was studying astrology, and that brought a lot of new ideas, confirmation, that permission slip, like I said, from the universe. My whole life, I'm an Aquarius, right? So for me, my whole life, I was fighting against this desire to break free and be unique. I was constantly trying to fit myself into a box. So oftentimes, our sun sign will show up in even the challenges that we've had, but those things that tend to be specific themes that we encounter through our life. So that's one thing, right? It's just the power of consciousness, self observation, self inquiry. So you can go really deep that way. And I think meditation is a great tool for that. I saw someone had a question on meditation, and that's a really powerful tool for finding that thing. The other way to feel into your sun is to just start to notice what lights you up. So I had a very simple but beautiful assignment that my spiritual teacher gave me over the course of this last week. And it was literally to just go out and have fun. Literally, like follow your gut, follow that call, follow your heart. What is fun? I know that seems so simple, but when it comes to leaning into our sun, just tuning into what gives you that buzz in your body, in your solar plexus, in your sacral chakra, like what makes you laugh? What are you excited to do? What don't you enjoy doing? Because that's going to tell you where you're not in alignment with your sun. So really starting to pay attention to what you enjoy. And I think especially with the sun, you're going to even feel that in your body. When we say that the sun is literally like the light in you, the life force in you, when that life force is activated and something gives you more energy, that's a sign that it's in alignment with your purpose, with your sun, with your soul's path, with your destiny, all of those sorts of things. So hopefully that's helpful to Jill when she has a chance to watch the replay.
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you for that. Sue, I see that you just came in.
What I did gather yesterday was profound. I found because I really came in mostly for the trust issue that is paramount for myself constantly. It's like really trust, because I have many goals and then I get impatient, like, well, do I see it yet? No. Well, why not? And I do, but so it's constantly a mantra of every moment to trust and have gratitude. I think those two together is the link because truly when things do manifest, it's remarkable how I realize, oh, well, of course, all these other things are falling into place. So I love it. But you're, along with that, the deep meditation, I don't know if you did one today, it was absolutely profound. I asked a question that I began to see, yes, the reality of it. And I'm eager to go back and find out, okay, so now that I can get free of all that, how did I get free? And what am I supposed to do with that?
I love it. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Sue.
Okay.
All right. So, Mia, I have a question about lucid dreaming. It's my understanding that, or is this true, that you can create karma when you're in doing dream yoga or lucid dreaming because of your intention of what you're doing in the dream. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, from the Tibetan Buddhist perspective, absolutely. For a simple reason, and not in an ominous way, not in a, more in the sense of if it's around intentionality. When we're lucid, we have a higher quality of intentionality to what we're doing. And say even with like what we call like samsaric dreams, like non-lucid dreams, in some ways we're still creating karma there. We're just stuck in a cycle of recycling content. And again, like not to think of this as like a doomy bad thing, but more like, certain habits of mind produce certain experiences. And people will notice this as you continue on your healing path. I'm sure most people find that their inner landscapes change, their reactions to things change, the things that they dream about changes. As we do things, we have this transformation of inner landscape. The moniker for dream yoga is the measure of the path, because dreams become the really honest reflection of what's in our whole system. Conscious mind, we can really be very spiritual and really think that we're doing a fantastic job, but we're really pushing down how we feel about our mother-in-law, and then it's going to come out in the dream. So it's really, but there's a real sense of like, so just knowing that there is this kind of like karmic repetitive mind habit. Where it becomes really cool is like when you get lucid, because of the strength of intentionality, you're incurring karma, but karma goes both ways. You're breaking patterns, you're integrating, you're changing. So you're reversing that unconscious momentum of the mind.
I love that. Thank you.
Great question. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Thea, you had an acronym yesterday with your talk. Can you go over the acronym again and remind people what it is and how you came up with that acronym?
Yes, I can. And I also, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. The headphones are new. I stole them from my son's room. So I'll go over the acronym real quick. And I actually got a little bit of information because Sue and Kai had put something out there, and I wanted to address it, even though this is recorded. And I'm happy to see Sue back here. So if I might be able to do that, that would be great.
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So for me, it needed to be something that was simple. Your intentional transformation in my life needs to be simple, because the hardest thing to do is to remember to do things, and 3 of us had talked about breathing meditations, and the trick is to remember to use them. So that's how I came up with making a pact with yourself. It's like a pinky promise, trying to keep it simple, memorable. One hand, you become aware of your intentional transformation, what it is that you would like to experience in your life, from the very simple to what can I eat that's healthier for breakfast, to with half my life behind me, how do I live as if I haven't had my best day yet? Then we pause and evaluate what our values are, because they help support us in achieving our it. And as well as the power of the pause in meditation, in breathing, it's the power of the pause where things are possible, space is possible. And that helps us to step aside from reactive habitual reactions and make actionable choices. Action. When we measure our actions, we prove ourselves trustworthy and the world around us to be trustworthy. And we see ourselves even in the seemingly non-forward movement, like, oh, that was a mistake I made today. But much of the time we can find a forward movement in our mishaps. And definitely we find them when things are going wonderful. Curiosity is the secret magical portion of making a pact with yourself, because a child's mind, when we set aside that intention, the intention of I know, and step out of the box into what I don't know and is possible, that's where the magic happens. That's where rolling with what life throws at you, being able to flow with that is so juicy. And, the example I gave was, ending up in Istanbul for a 20-hour layover that I had no idea I had because of a 24-hour clock time issue. And that was a wonderful experience. And then trust. That's where the gift is trust in yourself and the world around you. And so much of the time, people struggle with feeling trustworthy in their choices. And to trust, you feel trust. Know where trust shows up in your life. You use your trust. And when you trust yourself, it's magic. It's just magic. And so with that, I wanted to bring up, because Kai had talked about my memory of it is getting in touch with emotions. And Sue, you had mentioned about trust. And so the different ways that you can get in touch with your emotions is, I brought up, I'm walking at the Taj Mahal. And then maybe adding in, and how do I feel right now? I'm walking in the Taj Mahal. How do I feel? Oh my God, this is my bucket list. I'm walking in the Taj Mahal. That brings you present, and it helps you to get in touch with your emotions. It doesn't have to necessarily be an exciting experience. It can be, I'm going on the job interview for the job of my dreams, and I'm terrified and I'm scared. I'm going on the job interview for the job of my dreams, and I'm terrified and I'm scared. I'm going on the job interview for the job of my dreams, and I'm terrified and I'm scared. And it's making those feelings and emotions not wrong, just maybe challenging, something to support yourself in being gentle, loving, and kind with yourself. And that helps to establish trust and compassion for who we are and where we are at right now, especially when we're not comfortable with where we are at. Understanding and knowing different emotions that come up when we're getting the tingles. Everybody talked about it. I just want to say it was lovely to hear everybody sharing their own experiences and their own expertise and how they cross, how there was this connectedness, yet where I'm at today might sync more with Mia because I've been doing so much more yoga in my life. Kesley yesterday was taking off and going into another event after this and living someplace with her husband, and that's attractive at a different time of my life and whatnot. And then Marie, God, you did just such a great job with past life, which is something I've not necessarily jived with, but different places we're at in our lives. To have so many connected ways of healing was beautiful. So, at any rate, I really wanted to acknowledge to Sue and Kai. Hopefully there was a couple of things there that addressed your questions yesterday, and making a pact with yourself helps you to feel really just, I don't know, for me, in love with myself. I use it in the mornings before I get out of bed. If I'm not having a feeling that I would like to be experiencing, if I want to feel better, I go making a pact. I'm aware I don't feel good. I pause. What are my values about how I feel today? I don't want to make a habitual response. What are the actions I'm going to do? Curiosity, what's going on? What was I dreaming about that's messing with my head right now? And then trust. And lastly, I just wanted to say, I've been working on getting someplace 10 minutes earlier, 98% of the time. I've been working on that since 2011. And I really put it into action with prepping for this. And you know what? The red lights that you hit when you're late, that make you feel like life is against you, when you show up on time, those green lights, woo! green lights, rows of green lights make you feel like the world is showing up for you. And that is such a physical, real experience. And so I invite you next time when you're out driving, notice how you feel when all those red lights are up and recognize that the green lights are there just as much of the time as the red lights.
I love that. Thanks. Thanks, Thea. So Tiffany, I don't know if you have encountered this. I get this question a lot with people when I tell them to trust their instincts, trust their intuition. So what is the difference between instincts and intuition? And what do you tell people who feel that they don't have intuition?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. I'm a note taker, so I have great notes on what everybody has said and shared today and yesterday. So thank you guys for also teaching me. I'm a lifelong student. The instinct, right? It is your intuition. It's gut. It's keeping you safe. It's that. I would think that you would be more willing to trust your instinct over intuition because it's like a sharpness, maybe spirit has the microphone on. Will you say it again? Ask the last part of the question again.
So what I hear people talking about is instinct versus intuition. And then there are also a lot of people who feel that they don't have intuition and that it's just missing with them.
Yeah. Well, it's not. I mean, it's part of your chemical makeup, right? It's like, oh, I don't have DNA, or oh, I don't have curly hair, or oh, I don't have blue eyes. Like you do have it. It just might be that you haven't learned how to connect to it. Although, most of us are born with 5 senses, not everybody is. Not everybody can see color. Not everybody can visualize in their imagination, right? And so it's not that everybody has a perfect opportunity to be the best metaphysical, intuitive person on the planet. With my physique, I wasn't born to play football, right? I can learn, I can take classes, I can throw the ball. I'm probably not going to excel there, so I'd rather spend my time doing yoga with the yoga girls, You're going to have a strength somewhere in the metaphysical communication world. Everybody has it. And that's why it's a fun topic to teach, because we can fine tune and tweak yours. Your way is different than my way. I don't know anybody that's intuitive in the same flavor like I am. I had many great teachers who helped me understand that. And so I was never chasing their version. I was always like, looking at myself and dissecting myself. And that's why practicing with other people that are going to cheerlead and hit that dopamine receptor for you is really important, because, you need to hear the no, but you also need to hear the yes. And right. And you need to get that practice in because you are absolutely intuitive. And if you're feeling disconnected from it, it could be a hormonal thing. It could be a cortisol thing. It could be a mental block. It could be a fear. It could be your own trauma. You could be projecting your own healing onto the other person. Like there's lots of things along the way that can stop you from your own connection. But it's your birthright. Everybody has that ability to connect to our creator. So I just encourage people to fine tune and keep asking and keep finding their special sauce, their way. Break it down and see, okay, that's how I felt when I got it right. That's how it came to me. I love doing live demonstrations with people and then also watching them. They hate it. They don't want the teacher watching them practice. But I'm like, oh, perfect. Okay, so how did you feel? What was this like? What was going on in your right foot? And it gives them a sense of being able to break down their own process. So is that useful?
Mm-hmm. With astrology, Kesley, this question is for you. So you were talking in your talk, of course, about the sun. And that is so vibrant. The sun, of course, is daytime, but now A lot of people don't realize that there is a difference between a daytime sun and a nighttime sun when a person is born. Can you elaborate on that for people who maybe don't know much about this particular aspect?
Yeah, definitely. So think about it in terms of obviously the visible difference between day and night, right? If you're born in the night, there's going to be a depth to you, right? There's going to be a reflectiveness to you and an intuition to you, right? If you're born during the day, you're going to have more of that kind of outward focus. You may have a bit more of a what's like a extroverted personality. So there's definitely different expressions of the sun versus day and night. So definitely check that out in your chart. And another thing that we didn't talk about this yesterday, but of course the moon sign as well. For those who might be newer to astrology, if you're not familiar with your moon sign, that's also going to be very important because that's going to be your emotions, your internal world, your needs, how you self-nurture. The other part of the big three that, of course, we didn't get a chance to touch on, and one of the reasons I kind of stuck with the things that would be easy for people, the symbols that would be easy for people to figure out on the course of the call, we couldn't go into the moon sign because that gets pretty specific into your time of birth and your day of birth, and people would really need to know a lot of detail on their chart for that. But the moon sign, if you are looking for how to balance yourself emotionally. So, for example, for me, when I had my first reading with an astrologer, we talked about where I was at the time. I was going through a spiritual awakening, and I was traveling all over the world. I didn't have a home. I have a moon in Capricorn in my fourth house, like grounding down and having a home and having a space to feel safe was really important for me. So if you're ever feeling like you're lacking vibrancy or life, look into your sun. If you're feeling like you're lacking that emotional alignment, look into your moon. So that's some advice I would give just to keep it simple for people.
Oh, that is so good because my next question was going to be, how do people marry the two together?
Yes. Yeah, it's the balance, right? Like the sun is more the external. It's more of the, how are you showing up in the world? We can't show up in the world if we don't take care of ourselves inside and emotionally and ground ourselves that way. So it really is a marrying of the two and understanding how they work together and how that's part of your story. A lot of people will come to me and they'll say, well, hey, my son's an air. Well, for me, I'll use me as an example once again. My son's an air sign, right? My rising sign's an air sign, but my moon sign is in Capricorn. So that's very earthy. It's very grounded. So I'm all up here, right? With all this air and ideas and communication and very social, but there's this part of me that wants to ground down and be very practical and very realistic and very, focused and success driven. And that's a part of my story. Your story will be unique to you. And it may seem like there's contradictions in your chart. For all of us, there's usually some sort of built-in contradiction, but there's also the remedy for that. And oftentimes it brings us back to a place of balance. And that's why there are those sort of built-in contradictions that our soul chose before it came into this reality. So it's very important to know the two. And we didn't, again, we didn't get to go into all the signatures, but if you haven't explored the whole chart, your Venus can tell you about love and what you love and how you love. Your Mars can tell you about what really frustrates you, but also what energizes you, what drives you. Your Jupiter can show you an opportunity for expansion where you can have, good luck and good fortune in your life. Your nodes tell you about your spiritual journey. Your Mercury tells you how you think. So there's so much we can find in our birth chart in terms of I talked about yesterday, self-awareness, right? Being aware of who we are, but also loving who we are, appreciating who we are, and really, and it's going to come through trial and error as well, and just life. Like, yes, I think our chart can point us in the right direction in terms of our purpose, but oftentimes it's pushing our edges a little bit. It's pushing our comfort zone a little bit. So there's the knowledge and the awareness, but there's also still the self-actualization piece where we go out there in the world and we actually do, and we show up and we shine our lights.
Oh, exactly. I mean, as my mind as an air sign, as a Gemini, I wonder if Mia has, I would wonder if there is a correlation between a person's sun and moon sign and how they actually dream and what they actually experience in their dreams. Of course, that's my mind and how it works. It's like, how does that?
Marie, I've had that same thought because, for example, my husband's a Pisces. One of my spiritual teacher was a Pisces, and they both had, and Mia, I'd be interested in your thoughts. I'm curious about what your moon sign is. He travels to all these different realities. I mean, he's like himself and all these different versions of himself in all these different places and realities. And it's so intriguing to me. My dreams are very rooted and grounded. My moon's in Capricorn, so they're very realistic. And it's in the fourth house, which can be like childhood and family. So a lot of times I'm going back in time to my, like, what seems like me in this current lifetime, but they seem much more grounded and practical. So Mia, I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I confess, like, I haven't really delved into the world of astrology. It's not a frame I've necessarily worked with my clients, but I could see how, like, if there's these kind of astrological emphases, like you said, like, okay, well, Capricorn tends towards more a focus on this. And if we think about it from a habit of mind perspective, it makes sense. I think dreams tend to reflect what is alive for people and what they think about. You think about, like, a dream is a thought elaborated. So what you're thinking during the day, that style, that whatever it is, that applies to nighttime, but fleshes out into full-on dreamscape. So it makes sense that, like, Pisces tend towards more perhaps fluid or fantastical thinking and dreaming. It'd be a good thing to explore.
Yeah, well, that's where my mind goes with it, because I'm an eighth house Taurus moon conjunct Venus. And I find it's fascinating because for those of you who are not familiar with astrology, we have the houses where each house represents a certain aspect of your life. So because I said I have an eighth house, that particular house is related to secrets, other people's money, everything that's hidden, the occult, death, all of that. And I tell you, I meet a lot of people in my dreams who've crossed over. I also meet a lot of people. I learn secrets in my dreams. It's anyway, that's.
So I'd like to add a little to that, because I do teach astrology and intuition. And in terms of the moon sign, what I have found is if you'll just break it down by element, so a lot of the common thing is like, oh, you get your ideas in the shower. Well, maybe the water moon peoples do, maybe the water moon sign peoples do. But I would look at both Neptune and the moon, of course. But if you just look at the element of water, or you just look at the element of fire, like sometimes I need to be walking around or I'm driving when I get my quick hits or when I get my intuitive hunches. So there's that element of action with a fire moon or a fire Neptune, right? Earth, these are going to be the people that embody it, that maybe feel it more, that are maybe getting the chill bumps or using their body pendulum, or are more sensitive to things like drugs, alcohol, food, chemicals, getting the crazy dreams, right? Because of the food type of dreams. We didn't talk about that, Mia. Let's get a dream cookbook going. What induces? No. And then who did I leave out? Air, right? So air sign moons, I think, are and I mean this as a compliment, like the least complicated, because there's already a command of the airwaves, with it's less emotional, it's less complex in terms of things that we could muddy it up with. And so I love, to combine, all of these, everybody's expertise is here into this subject. So thanks for letting me jump in.
Oh my goodness, that was fantastic, because I know even when I'm taking somebody through a regression session, I want to know what their Mercury is, but I also want to know what their moon sign is, because with people with Earth, I tell them, when you go into this regression, you're going to observe. You're not going to experience it as being that, because I don't want them in there. I don't want them in that body.
Right.
that is just not a good thing. So, Mia, what issues have you seen with people who are the common issues that people have with actually doing lucid dreaming? And how do you help them work through it?
It's interesting because I think the obstacles to lucid dreaming are just common obstacles for any spiritual path. The first biggest obstacle is just, like I said, the habit of mind. If for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, you have been living your life unquestioningly, not like engaging in self-reflective practice, or then, you have to kind of reverse the momentum of mind. So that requires us to give up our addiction to ignorance, which means, I always say, like, there's two dials. There's like the heart, which is like the motivation. Like, I want to do this. I want to wake up. I want to be of benefit to my family. I want to be of service to people. The heart. And then there's the fire. Like, cool. So are you willing to do what it takes, right? Like the Toltecs talk about it, like the two qualities required for lucid dreaming are discipline and courage. It's a warrior's path in some ways. So I think that, and then fear. I think it requires a lot of trust and capacity in one's self, because when you're going into the dreaming world or any of these liminal states, you're giving up a degree of surrender. It's comparable to when you take a medicine journey. If you're drinking ayahuasca or you're taking some kind of psychedelic, there's an enormous amount of surrendering required to access these greater altered states. It's the same with the dreaming world. Mm-hmm. You're essentially putting yourself from where you thought you were in control into being into relationship. And so I work with people around, instead of taking away what's scary, because you can't do that, but building their internal sense of courage and capacity by training their nervous system. So I teach people how to be able to experience an activating or deactivating state and bring it into connection. So having practices that mean that you can see something scary and bring compassion, or like see something that collapses, but no, lift it up, bring compassion. And so by helping people to have that, they can approach what is scary or disturbing in a really empowered way, which, I mean, what else are we doing with our lives, right? Like it's very applicable. It's the dreaming realm, because it's going to be right in your face. You get to test it in real time. It's great. I suppose so fear, ignorance, and then grasping, outcome dependence. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen this in yourselves and people you work with, where people come and they're like, okay, I want to do this thing. But underneath it is like they want a specific outcome. They're like, I want to do my astrological chart because I want it to guarantee me that I'm going to be famous and successful. Same with lucid dreaming, where coming and being so attached to the outcome can get in the way. And so really teaching people to be, again, in a sustainable relationship with themselves and reality. So as they're working on, reversing the momentum of their mind and getting to know their dream world, they don't wake up every morning and go, oh, I didn't get lucid. And then they're just reinforcing the kind of crunchy conscious mind. So I think those are the kind of, let's say, three big ones for lucid dreaming, but I'm sure you can see the applicability across paths.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I see where Lisa wrote a comment. I think it was for you, Mia. She said, Mia used shadow person for thing in a different way.
Yes,
positive
shadow.
Than I usually hear shadow.
So Lisa, the way that I talk about shadow, which is you're bang on, is to think about it more in the traditional Jungian sense of shadow not being bad and evil, shadow being anything that we disowned and put away. And these can be quote unquote positive characteristics too, like the golden shadow. And let's say, Lisa, as a child, you were really spiritually in tune and you were like able to see things or feel things, but your parents found that really disturbing. They were like, no, that's just silly. That's stupid. Put that away. As a child, you may have disowned your spiritual connection and pushed it into the shadow. So it forms a part of your shadow, even though it's not a bad thing. And, obviously there's things that we disempower. We know anger is bad, or sex is bad. Like, and so things that form collective shadows, like things that society disapprove of, tend to form our personal shadows too. But all of us know this, even in anger is not a bad thing. There is a certain amount of correct and attuned anger necessary to effectively navigate this world and to be in correct relationship with each other. And so going into the lucid dream, you see shadow aspects as not bad guys, but as disowned aspects of yourself that you want to integrate into the whole. So instead of playing 6 notes, boom, 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 you now have access to the entire spectrum of your human expression, and you can skillfully use those intentionally and consciously, instead of having it be in the shadow. And then, of course, what happens comes out in all kinds of strange, funny ways. So that's really what it is.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you for that. Thea, you put a note, you put something in the text or in the chat. It was a clickable link.
It is.
What was that for?
I'm so I'm thrilled to death. I made a playlist, and hopefully it a connection to that. Being that I am not super savvy with technology, I was hoping that that is what is clickable on that. But I know that.
Oh, yeah. It is clickable.
Okay.
It is. And we can put it in the final email that goes out to everybody to make that easy for them, because I don't know if they'll be able, because there are some people who, of course, aren't here today. And I'll make sure that they get that. Thank you.
It was a practice in my being able to take it from a totally separate entity on here and put it on here. So that's what that was all about.
Oh, okay.
Nate has been equally wonderful in everything I've learned from all of you guys doing this, including even Tony. I did bring up Tony's, I grew up with dead people. They just weren't buried yet. And I
love that
today at work this morning, and lots of good laughs from that one too. So yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. All
so
right.
Nathan's contact is putting all of this information too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so everybody has something going on, and I'd like to make sure that you're showcased with what you have coming up, what events you have coming up, and what you're doing. And just to put it on the recording, how people can reach you, and what services you offer, and that sort of thing. It's going to be in the email to everybody, but I also like to put it on the recording. So Kesley, take it away. What services do you offer, and what do you have coming up? Any talks, and how do people reach you?
Sure. So probably the biggest thing I'd love for people to check out if they want to learn more about astrology or the breath, really any of the things I talked about yesterday. I did share a little bit about, people pleasing and being, externally focused. If that's been your journey, you may resonate with my book. It's called The Ascended Life, and that's available at life.kesleytweed.com. My website is kesleytweed.com. I've got a variety of resources there, including a meditation playlist, how-to guide. There's chakra resources and a whole chakra journey that you can go through, all kinds of stuff you can find on the website. And I'm most active on Instagram. So you can reach me there through direct message or just through my Instagram page. It's Kesley Spirit Guide.
I love it.
Thanks for the opportunity, Marie. This has been so much fun.
All right. Thank you. Sue, you had your hand up and I didn't see it, but I read the clickable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps now is not the time, since others are needing to share, with the presenters, their contact information. But going back to the lucid dreaming, which is something I've followed ever since a wee child, I have dreams like tours that I've, vacations that I've gone on that still stick in my brain. And then many, many, many that are so confounding. And of course, as an astrologer, I'm fascinated, and I'm thinking I have moon in Libra, so a lot of mine have about relationships. So I was trying to think of, with Mia, I'm thinking about the lucid, and I missed your presentation, so I will listen to it because of my situation today. But I'm thinking, so some of the guiding intentions are, one is without too much deliberate expectation, which is a lot like trying to, as I understand that, because anytime you're working with spirit or source, if we're not the designer, we're the intender, and then we need to recognize what's coming in. So I appreciate that. So I'm wondering, what would be, and long story, I apologize if you're repeating something that you gave earlier, but what would be the basis of a reasonable relationship for working with lucid dreaming, such as regularity? I catch what you're saying, which is always important, but the other cycle, the questions, the type of intention.
You're gonna, yeah, you've already, I can feel you already nailed it, because it's exactly, it's spreading the butter, the strength from your other paths. With lucid dreaming, you're going to want to create a relational base. So seeing the dreaming mind as a collaborative partner, as an intelligent, wise, and an extraordinary collaborative partner, not something that you're going to make do something, right? So you can play with it in terms of, we know that the dreaming mind is sub and unconscious mind. It's with us all the time. So asking it questions during the day, bringing it into your waking state, bringing it into your practices. You can kind of weave it in like this. And when you listen to the replay, I give you guys the 3 practical techniques to start with that form a lucid dream practice. And the way to approach using those is with a kind of devotional consistency. So not like a strict taskmaster, punish yourself if you get it wrong, but like just discipline in the sense of discipledom, being a devotional disciple to tonight when I go to sleep, I'm going to take 5 minutes to really connect with my dreaming mind and really plant my intention for tonight. And it's juicy and it's fun and lighthearted. I can feel your energy is already, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Sue. All right, Mia, since you were on the stage, tell people what classes are coming up, how they can reach you, how they can register, and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And how they can work with you.
I only do 6-month trainings, which are currently sold out. So in this moment, there's no way for a minute to work with me. And the next training round will probably be November. I think in November I'll open a new training. But I do offer, I'm a teacher on a platform called Nightclub. And I do offer every 2 weeks a drop in there. Or the best way would just be to join my email list. You can find me on Instagram at mymialux, and I do a weekly lucidity boost where I'll send out resources or tips about lucid dreaming. It's just a free way to support your practice or to get into it. I also have a YouTube channel which has all the basic training. So there's a lot of free content in my sphere if you want to start practicing. And then in the 6 months, you're feeling excited about it, we'll have another intake for those group programs.
Perfect. Thank you, Mia. All right, Thea. Tell people how they can get in touch with you. Do you have any workshops or classes coming up, or and what you specialize in?
All right. You can find me right now. The YouTube channel is Raw Vlogcast. And on that, I specialize in talking with people. I interview people in their passion. And I have a ton of videos, and I mostly talk with musicians, but there are a few others in there. And then there is the playlist that I created for this particularly. And it goes a little more in detail with some meditation and action steps to being able to practice making a pact with yourself and feeling empowered and like you're your own superpower and in choice. That is a precipice for an ebook that I'm working on. So if you're able to do and give any feedback. Like Kesley had given me a little feedback about something we talked about yesterday, and all the feedback helps. And what I developed this talk about was from actual testimonials from other people I've worked with. So I would love to be an author like the rest of you all. At any rate, theadaniels.com and theadaniels.com is my email. Coach Thea Daniels on Instagram. And Facebook, you can either go to Thea Daniels or The Art of Human Connection but Thea Daniels is a much better way to connect with me. You can direct message me there. So right now it's about working on the book and getting that template out there. I have ideas, and it's amazing what is possible from simply starting something. So putting this together led to the book, which will be next. And I'm a new yoga teacher, and so I'm in the world doing that and working on some virtual yoga classes. And lastly, I do personal one-on-one coaching in 1 and 3 month segments, because I firmly believe in, if you take this and go forward, you are in charge of your own life, but I'm always there if you need to come on back. So I do personal coaching on finding what lights you up, your passion, and then connect them with other people in the world, as far as if you need another coach for business or marketing or dreams and all of that. So my thing is about helping you discover what is your passion. And I'm always open and available for new customers and clients as far as that goes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Thea.
Sure.
All right, Tiffany, what do you have coming up? I mean, you've got a lot going on.
I do. I do. I'm kind of like the others. The best is to get on my newsletter list. I send out a forecast every Friday. My best selling product is my astrology digital calendar, and it's about to go on sale because it's the year's almost halfway over. So you'll get a solstice sale. We're doing another round of psychic development circles, and I'm doing it at a donation rate. This is just kind of a one time of a year. Generous May. And everything, the spiritual development membership I offer, all of that, the easiest place to go is my name, tiffanyharlick.com, because I have branched out other websites. So if you want to adopt a hive, my beekeeping stuff is over here. If you want to publish a book, it's at Spellbound, right? If you want to do astrology calendar, it's over here. So if you just want to explore all of it, the easiest place to go is my name, which is tiffanyharlick.com, and it's Harlik. It's Harlick like garlic.
I love it. All right.
Yeah.
That is so wonderful. And I am one of the world's worst when it comes to tooting my own horn. And I guess it's because I'm not a Leo, but I've got to learn it because my progressed sun is in Leo now. So anyway, I am, of course, a life coach, an astrologer, and a past life regression facilitator. I offer, of course, these annual retreats. The next one is coming up August 19th and 20th. Because everyone is on the email list, you'll get the information on that retreat. So I tend to do retreats twice a year. I see people as their life coach. I love working with people who are ready to change their life, ready to change who they are. My whole purpose is helping people to expand their consciousness and even know that they have a consciousness and that they can expand it, that they can heal from the trauma that they have had. I have published my first book, which is And the Lotus Opened, a memoir. It's right back there. I wrote the memoir initially to work with my own trauma to go back through my life to see if there were parts of me that still needed working on, or which parts they are. And of course, as a Taurus moon, I did that through feeling how I felt in the body when I was writing. I wrote it as a way to help other people know that no matter what they've gone through, they can heal it, they can transform it, they can work through it. So if you're interested in the book, you can find it on at Barnes and Noble or Amazon, any place where online, online bookstores, you can certainly find it there. I, of course, want to thank everyone who has participated in this retreat, in particular, all of the presenters. You have taken your time, your precious time, to be here to talk to people you may know, people you don't know, and to help all of us to expand our awareness and our consciousness. I thank you, Mia. I thank you, Thea. Oh my goodness, those names, they rhyme. I thank you, Tiffany and Kesley, for being here. There will be a notice going out to everyone with all of your information on it, all the free gifts that you have offered. My heart is open and full of gratitude for you. This has just been precious. Thank you. And before we go, it's actually getting, oh my goodness, it's amazing how quickly time goes. I'm just floored. So it's time for us to close out this wonderful session. And to do that, I want to offer a final prayer. And of course, it's a Buddhist prayer of dedication. Through the power and truth of this retreat, may all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may they all dwell in the great equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Aho. We can extinguish the candle, but please be sure to stay in touch, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, eat good food tonight. Make sure that you contemplate what you've learned here. You will get a you'll get a link to be able to listen to this retreat again. It will be available to you for the next 6 months. So listen to it as often as you can, and please email the speakers and stay in touch. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.